it's something you gotta get the whole hang of. So if like, and one of the things like you can't do it on yourself, which can be frustrating. So if you ever want your keeper to pile in twice, you're gonna need 2 keepers, and you're gonna make sure that the one you want to fight with twice fights first, which might not always be the right play. Because you're like, well, if this one doesn't fight first, she's probably gonna get her butt kicked. But I really want this one to fight twice, and so you have to do a little bit of calculation.
Yeah, I mean, in a subtle way, it also opens up other things than keepers. Now, you can belabor the point all night about how overcosted the whole book is, and I think that is a valid, sincere criticism. I don't think there's any bad faith acting, and that book is overcosted. But like that's like you could spend 6 hours just talking about how everything's overcosted. I'm going to throw it in a bubble. We all know that at all times. It's overcosted, right? Like it's boom. We all know that. Everything we say understanding that everything's overcosted. But, you know, people hate Hero Hammer. Like they hate it. And I like it personally, but it does kind of like devalue the keeper just a little bit to allow you to like enable something else. Like, you can play a keeper, but then like you're playing a keeper with Sigvald. Now Sigvald's activating twice, and you're like, you know, like there's some other stuff in there. So I like it. I see Chat Gang's already showing off. We got Martin Orlando, Chaos Spawn, War Gaming saying, "Hello, you beautiful nerds." Kicker popping off, and W. Soren saying, "Good evening from Texas. Good evening, Chat Gang." I'm, of course, the magical Mr. Mephisto, joined tonight by Jack from Rerolling
So,
Ones.
look, we have Rocco. He just started his YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Take Over Mars just started his YouTube channel. W. Soren, you're next, my friend.
Yeah.
I want some content out of you.
That's it, Soren. You already got your sign on ready, brother. You got the hardest part done. You just say "Good evening from Texas," and then you go into the spiel. That's half the battle in content creation.
Getting catchphrases. You know, I need my ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. I need my smell what the rocket's cooking. You have to have a catchphrase.
Yep.
You know, and that's what you need.
Yeah. I mean, do we count the cold opens, like the most prolific cold opens in Age of Sigmar content creator? Is that the sign on with Rerolling Runs, do you think, or do you actually have catchphrases that you associate?
Yeah, I have catchphrases. I actually do, like standalone. So I'll do like from God, why am I blanking on the name of that band? Sully's the lead singer, Godsmack. Standalone. So I did that in one of my first videos, and I would sprinkle it in, and it's a little Easter egg, and people will shout it out. You know, I open every video with "It's Jack." You know, I give my little army spiel, and like we used to do like things like the gentleman's. We're moving, and like, well, I'm going 9 inches. Well, the gentleman's 9. We used to do stuff like that, and it's like you get people who have been like loyal since day one, or you know, from early on, will like associate stuff with the channel, like my Slaughter Priest Cordell, he gets a shout out, and people I enjoy when I bring him around. And it's just little things that rewards people who've been there for a long time. And we still try to make it enjoyable for people who may be just tuning in for the first time. And you get people then go look at your back catalog, and you see from the start. You know, we're at 3 years now. We just hit it January.
So. Yeah, right on. Congratulations on 3 years. Just want to say real quick, Soren popping off with the VIP level donation. $250. Please remember that you are my favorite streamer and that I support all you do. Thank you. Thank you so much, Soren. Man, I don't even... Thanks for buying me 2 Keepers of Secrets.
Yeah, and Soren's been there, like, you know, asking us if we had a Patreon. We are 3 guys who, this is like a fun thing we do. And so, like, it's like when you take, especially because we were considering Patreon beginning of 2020, and then the pandemic stuff, and I'm not going to ask somebody to give me money during this time. And so, not saying it's a bad thing, but I'm not in a place where who does money's great. No, I'm not saying we don't want it, and that might not come, but somebody's got to pay for these hats. But and it's just like we're just like I have ideas. Oh, maybe we could do this. Maybe we do this, but when you have 3 guys who are like, me and Brent, me and Shu have families. Brent just he's in a serious relationship, and so we're trying to make sure our lives are okay. And that being said, here's from the behind the scenes thing. So Shu, I'm not going to say so he had an interesting thing happen at his work. So he has more responsibilities, and he has 4 kids, and so he would do all the editing. Now I've learned to edit, so I'm editing now. So we're ramping. So it's on me now. So people we're like, because we had to slow down production, obviously, with not being able to get going.
Well, that cold open where you're standing across from each other to like give the best of it's still one of the greats. Yeah. But yeah.
And so I have 3 games in the hopper right now. I'm editing now. I was editing right before I hopped on, and I did Slaanesh vs. Khorne last night. It's one of my favorite games I played with new Slaanesh, which we'll talk about soon. And so we're I think we're making a comeback. Don't call it a comeback, but
you've been here for years, 3 years.
We went to hibernation year 2 just because the whole world. It's like this is the least important thing right now.
Yeah.
And so I can talk about that when we get into the other topics about. It's just some of the stuff I see, but then I feel like, okay, now I'm judging people for judging people, and now I'm a hypocrite.
The judgment. So I think I might have called this episode something about gatekeeping or judgment, one of the two. I'm actually when we get to that subject, just to sort it out, like this isn't like this won't be like a full on soapboxing, because the idea of gatekeeping actually dates back to the earliest understandings of about 1922, and it deals with communication, not just like you're not a real fan if you don't, it's not just that. And so I want to kind of mention a little bit of that as we get into it. But Soren already gifting another 5 gift subs, trying to reclaim the title of the Mad Lad that Takeover Mars has been giving him a run for his money. Hobby Bear dropping 1,000 RDP to remind everyone Chat Gang ain't nothing to mess with, and Kicker dropping 1,000 RDP to remind everyone that Chat Gang ain't nothing to fuck with. So thank you, Chat Gang. Love you all showing up in big support. Sword is the reason I have a Patreon, by the way. His pressure got to me. Like, I know that he's probably one of the ones who's like, hey, you guys should make a Patreon. He told me to make a Patreon, and he's a very big proponent of supporting the content creators you like. Like, I mean, I know he just Dave G-Dad, who shows up in chat every now and then, he's also like a big proponent of supporting the content creators you like. And you said something here like, this is the least important thing going on right now. And it feels for me like I kind of went into my own personal survival mode, and I like stopped doing content that really, it wasn't hard for me because I never really did like super like I got to reveal a battletome, I got to review this. I never really like went super hard in on that style of content. So when we went into the COVID, I do miss tournament like checkups. Like I miss that a lot. I miss
I'd love to talk about that.
I miss bringing on like a TO who just ran an event that I went to and talking to them for a little while, whether it's Brendan or David Griffin or like whomever, and just like talking. I love that style of content. But like that's about all I've missed from my like normal repertoire of stuff that I really like to do. And so I just went off to the reservation with like all the crazy stuff I normally do, which is like the adjacent topics and finding weird things to talk about. And it was like a survival mode thing. It kept me
running your own Blood Bowl leagues.
Yeah, Blood Bowl League. It for like in the week to week, it kept me like kind of honest. It kept me doing stuff. I missed 1 RantCast, I missed 3 RantCasts in like a whole, like in that whole period, which for me and my like mental health struggles feels like a good triumph. Looking compared to the number of like Soulbound games I didn't run, which was a lot more. I dropped the ball a lot more on Soulbound than I did RantCast, because RantCast is, quite frankly, it's not about me. It's kind of always been about Chat Gang, always been about that, giving us something to look forward to. And
the community. So,
right.
It's why you do it. When somebody lets you know, hey, this like one of the coolest stories I remember. Like this is like a year and a half ago. A guy named Ben. Like I got to meet him when I went to Nova, but he let me know like he went to a doctor and he was waiting on a serious diagnosis. And he said the first time he got to laugh again was he was watching a video with me and Doug, and we were playing. He's like, yeah, you actually distracted me from a little bit from this news that was coming up. And, it turns out he was great guy. The diagnosis came back all good. But like, oh, wow. And like another thing, when people tell me that they put us on as they fall asleep and we're in the background, I do that to stuff.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I'm in somebody's ear when they go to bed. That is like, oh, that's like a, it's not a responsibility because I'm not going to be like that, but it's like, I know that feeling. And I'm like, if like, OSW, I listen to them when I, go to bed and just laugh and like, yeah, I've listened to episode 100 times. I've never played 8th edition Warhammer, but I've watched every single mini war game, 8th edition bat rep, because I want to understand why people love this game so much.
Yeah.
And I'm watching it, and I was like, this has just as many flaws, or if not more, than AOS. And so you can see it's that rose tinted glasses, but you just there's things you get comfortable with, and it's like things you enjoy, and that's why I enjoy putting out bat reps, being silly, and not taking ourselves too seriously.
I think that's super important. Never ever take yourself too seriously, like when you're doing it, because at the end of the day, we cover a game. It's got to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Fun is the central. It is the core to. It is the core to what makes games games. Games should be fun. And
yeah, when I play a game, I'm playing. Play is I like
yeah. And when you're covering games, you should make it fun. Like I just those are things that have always been central. I got to say, like, it's funny because we're on this this next generation of content creators with like Rocco and Takeover Mars and Soren soon. Obviously, we'll wait for the Texas the Texas cast or whatever. And how like you Vince, Doom and Darkness, like all were like sort of that generation I was listening to that really influenced how I approach content. I joke about, like, I think Brendan Hobby Bear's in here. I just stole he used to do this or that, or they still do this or that as a big feature of the Cubic Shenanigans at the end, like this or that, where they just have like unrelated questions to whatever was the entire topic. They could have talked about 40K for 2 hours, and then they get to this or that, and they're like half of the time it's like college football and like just random questions. And I'm like, that part of your show and the first hour of Warhammer Weekly, where before they even talk, they do the news, they do the rumor engines, they do a little bit of banter. That's when the show is the loosest it is. I'm like, those are my favorite parts. The cold opens on Rerolling Ones. Doom and Darkness in his truck, just like sitting there on the side of the road, just like, man, I can't stop thinking about Age of Sigmar, and like just getting giddy. That's my favorite stuff, and that's what I tried to. And I hope that whatever this next generation of content coming out is, they cherry pick their favorite parts, whether it's Doug and you guys, and they make something. I think the Pants Mafia, Christian Ware, the minimum pants, the Pants Mafia as we call them in the Midwest, they just started doing bat reps. And you can see them like taking little pieces from Doom and a little bit from the Tactica from y'all. They need to get some bits going though. They need some Rerolling Ones.
There are things that, we watch too, play on tabletop. They are the now gold standard. It was just they're so good at what they do, and then I look at it, but I'm like, the game is the least like important thing to me. The actual nuts and bolts of the game. I enjoy the community. That's my favorite thing. I do enjoy the game more than painting, but I will paint when I get the momentum. But the community I love, and then because the game, I think Doug said this once. He said it's not some pinnacle of achievement as far as it's a flawed game. And I would always point out Warhammer never has and never will be a balanced thing. It's not chess. There's always going to be haves and have-nots when you get competitive, and but the whole community that surrounds this setting and this thing we enjoy, it's the models, it's the whole thing. That's what I like. And so bat reps, that's just our vehicle to get to the community.
Right. I mean, you mentioned the have and have-nots, and I'll never really be balanced. I don't know if people realize there's always a clamor for more balanced and more competitive Age of Sigmar. And, I certainly come down on the more competitive side, the sort of rules analytical side. I certainly do come down that way. I have softened my views. I'm going into, going into my second year, so I'm about a year and a half of RantCast now at this point. My 2-year anniversary should be August. Yeah. So August would be I think when I started RantCast. You have to go back a little bit. And, I've had to soften as I've talked to more people and really listened to them and incorporated their views into what I believe. I know from a competitive background, this isn't chess. And not realizing what it means to have that some imperfection and some imbalance within the game. People who just approach the game, play a little bit more casually, or they don't have 6 years to get as good at wargaming as the other people they play against. There's a real
Mm-hmm.
appeal into feeling that there's an any given Sunday vibe. You know, like any given Sunday, of course, in the NFL, anyone can beat anybody. Like, you know, the football is a weird shape, so it can scatter in any direction, and that can be the difference in a bad team beating a good team. Age of Sigmar has that vibe to it. You know, it's a dice game at the end of the day. It's got some imbalance in the armies you choose and you pick. People feeling like they have a shot. You know, you walk up to chess and you play a chess master, you will have no fun whatsoever. They will destroy you with strategies you haven't even conceived of. And like in Age of Sigmar, like if you get your fundamentals down, you have a legit shot at like in a competition because of that sort of that the rough edges, really, the inconsistencies. And I think that there's a beauty in that. Not that it should be, you know, completely whoppajog and like unreasonable and way out of whack and stuff like that, but you know, there's almost a charm to walking up to the table knowing this army is busted as heck, and then like, all right, then I'm just gonna play crazy. Like I'm just gonna go for the crazy strats. You know, there's a
we have objectives.
Yeah, we have play the objectives. You know, don't play the army. Things like that. Best strategy is to just buy your opponent's drinks. There you go. Get them so drunk they start messing up. Yeah, I mean, I think that the health of the game really does come from the community, keeping the community healthy, happy. You know, that's why the importance of like good armies and stuff like that. But I don't think I was going to dive super hard on the casual stuff, but you had a take on like sort of the relevance of casual. Is this something you've got like a big, like a real hot take on, something you can really just clear out of the way before we move into Slaanesh?
Well, so going with talking about the casual community, it's I've noticed like the more you play AOS, the better you get, the more competitive you get, the less important bat reps are. And so, because I know like when I was going to tournaments, I always constantly I would watch a bat rep, and I'm like, he shouldn't have done that, or why do you know? In my head, I'm like, he shouldn't take that. You shouldn't take that. Oh, you got that real wrong. This is now fan fiction. It's not a real game, and I'm less interested in it. Whereas, you know, and so, but when I was casual, I was just getting information, you know, because you know, I learned about the game through mini wargaming. Like they just you know had tons of bat reps out there, and trying to just and so you'll get people who like you, for instance, Gotrek or the old Thunder Tusk War Scroll. Now, when you're a newer player, this needs to be banned. It's so OP.
Oh, the old six mortals on a 2-up, boom, six mortals, boom, headshot, right? Like
won't even play somebody who has one in the list, right? Like that. Then when you get some seasoning under your belt, you get to and you like, okay, what is your threat range? What is this? There's a huge difference between D6 and 6, so I need to put some wounds on this guy, and things of that nature. Where like, and so you can see that like people hate Gotrek on our channel if we do a bat rep, like, oh, he's so OP, he's so this or that.
Yeah.
Then, oh, okay, well, you know, you don't want to. You can just all you do is death by 1,000 cuts. Give him something to chew on. He's not very fast. You know, ignore him like that.
Yeah.
But you view it differently. I've known like and like also there's the innocence of not getting corrupted by going the
filthy filthy monsters like me yet, right? Like we haven't gotten our talons in you.
Yeah. And so and just sometimes like the ability or is casual is like okay, I like being cognizant and trying to curate a game, which I recorded 3 games recently. I'll get to that, but when you curate a game, like what are you taking? Are you taking hyper competitive, or are you just taking some fun stuff? Because I'll try to match you, because there's nothing like that will make a game go faster than a hyper competitive list versus what I thought was cool. And you put those together, and it's just it's usually not an enjoyable game, especially for one of the players. So if you can curate a game, be casual about it, let tournament, unless you're preparing for a tournament, and their turn 0 is always huge. Like, what kind of game do we want to have?
Right.
Like, are we interested in just shooting models around? Obviously we're playing to win.
Right.
But are we, bringing a lot of aggressive, like a lot of eels, a turtle, and 2 sharks, and Soul Scryer, guess what? I'm charging turn 1. Not much you can do about it. And
Right.
bye Techless.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean that turn 0, communicating what type of game you want to have. It feels so obvious to have to say it, but but there are people. I see the same persistent problems that come up on whether it's Twitter or Facebook discussions or whatever. I see a lot of the same arguments, and they almost all could have been solved with a turn 0 conversation. What type of game do you want? Or like before you even get to your LGS with your list or whatever, or your minis, just being like, hey, if you got a Facebook group for your LGS or whatever, like, hey, I'm looking for some casual games, or hey, I'm looking for some tournament practice. Who's got a hard list they can bring? Something like that can make a huge difference. Perception is everything. Mitigating your perception and expectations going into an event, going into something, goes a long way in how you feel about that game. I like to see jank personally. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, this combo is janky, and so even if I show up with my casual list and someone like brings the janky thing, like I'm like, oh, I'm like, I've had that conversation where like, oh, I kind of brought my janky list and it's my janky tournament list, and I'm like, let's see it. I have that gear in my head that turns where other people like I brought my casual list. Oh no, I go, let's see how this works, because kind of like you, where you need to play some games to internalize them. I know what the combo sounds like on paper. I've talked about it at length. Like I can actually conceptualize stuff from that design and into reality, sort of like connect the dots. But like I really don't appreciate it until I see it on the table. Like
Exactly.
that final step of internalization where I'm like, okay. And then from there I can usually manufacture how I need to take it apart, because I do think competitively. I'm like, okay, well, what would disrupt this janky thing that they're
Oh,
trying to do?
yeah.
Right?
And then you like it becomes a puzzle to solve. Like
Yeah, I love
so,
puzzles.
Seraphon came out. My brother plays Seraphon, and you have brothers. You have that brother competitiveness,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm like, my brother used to tear me up in fantasy battle, but he's I was a kid, 6 years older. He should have beat me, especially with those tactics.
Right.
But when we became adults, got into Age of Sigmar, he beat me the first game, and then it was just a parade of ass kicking for 2 years, and I had to take worse armies because I was waxing his ass so much. So the new Seraphon book comes out, and he just played Seraphon the whole time, and he beats me. It was not even close, and I'm like, okay, and like back to the drawing board, and like I take the usual list that I beat him with, and so I try something else. He beats me even worse, and I'm trying everything. I'm going generic order just so I can take multiple things. I went and bought Techless just so I could stop
Just so you can say
Lord
no.
Crow.
Yeah, just so you can say no to
Yeah,
Crow. Yeah.
you know, and I made a specific. It probably would lose to everything else, but it beats the crap out of Seraphon,
Right.
and that was fun to me just to have that kind of we're talking trash. It can get a little heated, and we're just like, all right, take a break. Let's hang out.
Yeah.
We'll come back to this game in a little bit, but and that's just part of the thing where it's I don't know where we're going with that, but just when you play somebody who does have an army that's not casual,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to, like, all right, I can solve this.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I know what that does, because like this is a guy named Chris Michelson said this to me. He recently passed away, so rest in peace. Chris Cat, he was a great guy in our local game club. Told me after he beat me with Nagash, when it was like I snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. I was winning, and then he beat me.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, when you lose, you learn. And I've kept that. I'm like, yes, so when I'm shooting off your, Maw Crusher with my long strikes, before you get to go, I'm like, hey, next time when you lose, you learn. Yeah. But you have those conversations at turn 0.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And like Soren points out, the Haywo solution: take the hard list and the beer and pretzels list to the local store. If you don't have that Facebook group type thing where you can chat about it ahead of time, bring both your lists with you. Sometimes the
Oh, yeah.
difference between a hard list and a beer and pretzels list is a couple artifacts or a sub faction. Like it's not even necessarily a different model range. I mean, with Seraphon, it's very specifically don't play Starborn or whatever. Like actually just switch to Coalesced. So. Let's see, just catching
Look
up.
at Sword out, tossing out.
Yeah. Starting with another 5 gift subs, tossing out there. I'm hoping they add the Dema keyword. Oh, that's gonna be a long wait for a train. Don't come. The The demon keyword will not end up on the Twin Souls. I will eat tonight's show notes live on camera. I will tear them up into confetti and cook them in sloppy joes and eat them live on a RantCast if they actually add the demon keywords to Twin Souls and Sigvold. If they actually do that, I will eat these show notes.
Well, you look at Blight Kings; they look like they should be demons, but they're not. So I could see them not also being for Twin Souls.
Well, I mean, it's Valkia. Valkia is a demon by all measure in the lore. Carries a shield that is a demon. Doesn't have the demon keyword, and then the FAQ was like, "Hey, we noticed Valkia doesn't have the demon keyword. Is she supposed to?" And then just no in pink text. Like I just don't see it happening. If Sigvold and or Twin Souls get the demon keyword, that's a Mephisto promise. Glotkin's not a demon either, but Glotkin via the story is supposed to specifically not be a demon. Like, anyway, I cut you off. What's up?
So Meph and I made a bet that actually didn't get a chance to get resolved because the Packers and the Seahawks both lost in the playoffs. If the Seahawks would have won, we would have played it.
Yeah.
So would you like to put the bet on for another year?
Yeah, we'll just roll it forward to the next year. I still have faith in my Packers. For as long as Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback, I will take that bet every time.
My quarterback, there's been some rumors. There's been some things going on. I'm a little worried. But if we do lose him, I'd like to, go young.
Don't worry. I'll timestamp the section after this. Everyone who's not interested in sports ball, but I got to ask you real quick, as a fellow NFL fan to fellow NFL fan, what is that like? Like our local coverage versus the Packers, we call them the green and gold glasses. They're super always tinted with our local coverage. I think part of it's because of the owned by the fans shtick, that sort of grassroots hometown thing. What's the coverage like in Seattle? Does it, when you get a rumor like they might trade Russell Wilson, is it doom and gloom? Like how's your coverage been?
Well,
in this?
we have it's like the whole Russell can do no wrong. It's never his fault kind of thing. Okay. And so it's just never his fault. And so because he's always been so like such a loyal guy, go Hawks, go Hawks, go Hawks. It became a meme, and to like he'll never leave. But you take a step back, like, hey, these guys are professionals. They're here to make money, and like he was the most sacked quarterback. Hey man, if he wants to go, and so the older I get, the less fanatical I become in everything.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, he's got to do what he's got to do.
Yeah.
And so I'm not like, oh, this is BS. He needs to, just do your job. Why are they celebrating? Yeah. And so, now I'm just like, man, he did, I got the chance to experience the Super Bowl with my kids, and that was really fun.
There you go.
Got the chance to get that heartbreak in the following year. And then you kind of just like, I like liking stuff. I don't, I don't like being obsessed with stuff. So I like a lot of different.
That's a healthy take. I think that's a healthy take. I could probably learn from that. 3 times I think you've been on RantCast and still learning stuff from you, my friend. Good night, G-Dad. Yeah, the VOD will be available tomorrow. Thanks for stopping in.
Mm-hmm.
If Meph has another Rantathon, I will paint a copy of Curse City for his raffle. We don't like to use the words raffle, because that
instead of put raffle, just put and send to Rerolling Ones.
Yeah. There you go. No, we're actually, the Shadow Council is convening now to figure out some logistics of. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So it will be this year, probably somewhere between July and October. I heard August being thrown out. I want to check what tournaments may or may not go on. I don't want to do it during a tournament weekend, especially I zoom in at Midwest first and then zoom out from there. So, if
I know the last weekend of August, maybe first weekend of September is Nova. Hopefully, I'm excited. I'm still worried because I just had a friend who got COVID, so it's like, oh yeah, this is still super serious. And so you see all this stuff going on, but I'm like, I would love to do the tournaments again, and it's weird because like we're very in Seattle, we're very everybody's wearing masks, everybody this. But I had a friend, she just went to New Orleans, and just seeing how many people just not to get political, if you wear a mask, wear a mask. If not just different regions, how different they are.
Yeah.
I'm like like, oh my gosh, why aren't they wearing masks? I'm like, not everybody is wearing them.
Yeah, I don't know. It's we have had a couple people get it in our, not in our bubble, but in our family and friends circle. The one, fine. Like the other one, persistent health issues. Just they keep coming. Like it won't. Like he got a milder case, and he's in his 20s. Like he's not old. He's in his 20s. He got a mild case of COVID. Like kind of hammered for a week. Just didn't feel good. The symptoms you hear about, and then he recovered, and then it's just been like every month we hear about some new stuff going with his health and stuff, and it's like you forget because it has. I do think we have kind of transitioned a little bit to normalizing it, a little bit like we're okay. We're just in this now. Like this is just how we live, right? And some people have gotten fatigue and they're trying to get back to their lives, and I understand. We all live lives of quiet desperation, just trying to do the best we can with what we got, right? I get it. You know, and then every now and then I just get this like harsh reminder of how bad things are, and it's crazy. Um, the vaccine's around the corner. That's so I don't like to be doom and gloom, especially about reality stuff. So
Yeah, let's get back to get back to our fantasy world.
yeah. Uh, Soren had it. He ended up in the hospital for a week with persistent health issues since. Yeah, I mean it's harsh, and when someone good people that you love, respect, and care for are hurting, I kind of shake my fist. Old man yells at clouds. Wear your damn masks. But that's enough soapboxing for the evening on that. Um, so I guess you want to just get into Slaanesh, which you mentioned you recorded a game of Slaanesh versus Khorne for
Played last night.
no spoilers. That's going to be a battle report, I assume, right?
Oh yeah, well it's all good. I'll talk to you about the game. I'll just won't say who won.
All right.
Yeah, so I got to experience it. I did a little kind of review thing. It's like we live on the West Coast, and so GW when they ship their stuff out, we usually get it like the day that before that we're allowed to talk about it. So we're kind of rushing to get content out so we can be part of the release stuff. And and like then we
you got to let the robots work for you, man. Like it's hard making content. You got to ride that wave. Like that algorithm wave when it comes in.
So I went through the book. You can definitely tell that I like Slaanesh better more than Daughters of Cain because I've like being up here. We're in the little corner. We only had one Daughter of Cain player, and he played Kraith from the last book. So I never got to hear like how bad Harganeth were or anything like that. And so looking at the changes, it's like I now have a Daughters of Cain army here that got super cheap. So Marathi and all this stuff. I really felt like looking through the book because I fell in love with the models, especially for a lot of them being really older kids. I think they stand up. I think they're beautiful, and I never thought I'd want a all half naked female elf army. There's Doom Fire Warlocks in there, but yeah, I'm like I fell in love with them, and I still have Slaanesh, and Slaanesh feels like it's definitely different. It is I'm not going to say worst or better. They've changed some things, and there are some rules that you really have to look at and read it maybe 3 or 4 times before you're like, okay, this can be easily done poorly if you don't and I'm referring to the Keeper of Secrets command ability, excess of violence, where it used to be straightforward. You can select a unit to pile and attack again. Now there's like the stars in the
another unit. It says another unit, so rather than itself, you have to target something else.
And there's there's like things where the changes are okay. I actually enjoyed the depravity change because I was playing against Khorne and he was doing things like failing prayers and hurting himself, and that still counts as a depravity because but it's only if things don't die.
Mm-hmm.
So it can sometimes you're like, oh, I don't want you to die because I really need this depravity to summon something.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the way it works sometimes.
Yeah. Martin Orlando signing off to do some paint coaching, but he asks for you to talk about Lumineth once, even if it's to dunk on them.
So Lumineth, Tiles were my first army because I started playing in 4th edition in that box. I didn't know I was gonna love them until I I bought Techless. Just did, like I said earlier, I looked at his rules.
Mm-hmm.
Croak is kicking my butt. What is a good anti-Croak guy? Techless. So I went and bought him. And sometimes you let people influence you about like. Then you realize, well, they don't like it. That doesn't mean that I don't, and I don't need to feel bad for them not liking it. But and sometimes I try to be wary of that because I was listening to I forget who I was listening to, but they said they didn't like something that I liked, and I was like, oh man, somebody I like doesn't like somebody I like.
Yeah.
They don't like the thing I like, man. And then so I've always been cognizant of not either saying this is trash,
Right.
or that I never use like this is garbage, this is trash, this is anything. I'm like, if you like it, you like it. I don't even say it's not for me. That's cool. But because I'd hear people, oh, the helmets are stupid. Look at the way he's over it on the Selenar, the Sphinx. Oh, it's dumb how he's like that. Look at there. This is stupid. And I'm looking at him, but I'm like, but I like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah.
And it's like, and sometimes you're worried about like speaking up and then getting, called, oh, you're dumb because you like that. This is not enough people say, I don't like this to me. Like this doesn't look good to me.
There's not enough qualifiers when people say their thing. We usually go in supreme hot take, speaking in what's called the active voice. Which is good writing technique. You're supposed to speak in the active voice, be assertive with how you speak and how you write. But in the internet, in the binary land of the internet, when you say this is, to use this is trash, or I don't like this, or this is bad, right? Like, this is bad. This is a bad model. This is a bad sculpt. You're really kind of like throwing out this rock that might just hit someone in the dome, somewhere down the line. You have no idea where that rock's going, right? Conversations with you, it was kind of like a 1-2 punch for me in, like, how do I want to be perceived as a content creator? It was very important to me. I often talk about how I live life with a healthy dose of Cartesian doubt. Is, of course, this notion that everything I think could be wrong, right? Everything I believe. Reality might not even exist. I could be 5 pounds of jelly in a jar. I have no idea, right? So everything that I know could be wrong. Wherever I gain my understanding. So I try to, when I do content, apart from my snarking when I'm joking, right? Like I try to make that pretty obvious when I'm being snarky.
Yes.
But when I'm making my content, I try to make it very clear that this is what I think. I'm open to being wrong, and I'm really trying to say stuff to get other people to think, and not telling them what to think. Like, I don't want to tell you what you should think when I do my show. I tell you what I think, and how I think that, and how I came to those conclusions, and all this information that as I'm talking through. A lot of times when I'm making a point, I haven't even decided what I believe yet. Talking it out, being kinesthetic, moving my hands, playing a game, is me currently developing what I think. And I don't ever want to be that content creator who ruins somebody's favorite thing. I just never want to be that. I had that moment for me, very viscerally feeling like, someone I like hated something I love so much. And part of it goes with I shouldn't take what I like so seriously, and then I can't be hurt anymore. If I don't take it seriously, who cares? But then the other part is just like myself not wanting to do that to other people. I still say things are trash. I'm trying to avoid the it's a trap unit pretty heavily, and I'm trying to avoid calling things trash or garbage. I'll leave that to Haywo. He does it way funnier than I do anyway.
He does a great job at it.
Yeah, he's fantastic. Like like he's got that covered. You don't need me for that. So it was really, I remember a conversation we had that really helped me sort of lock in, like, hey, this is how I want to approach stuff. So I appreciate that.
And it's like it's things like you get. I guess the more like confidence you gain in yourself, the less that matters. But not everybody is like at the level that other people are at. And and it's, I think if people would be more cognizant of that, it's like when you have people who listen to you. Like, I remember going to a tournament and telling somebody they bought the army because they saw me run it, and they put like, oh, I thought I tweaked it a little bit, but I'm like, oh, like that is like, oh, it's like, oh, you bought something because you saw. I'm like, oh man, first I need a cut from GW. No, it's like, that was like, oh man, I responsibility.
Yeah.
If and so that you just try to be and I try to be entertaining, try to be a positive influence, and because that's what I like to see when I watch stuff.
Yeah.
And like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the a couple things to address here at chat real quick before we move on from this. But I remember one of the podcasts I watched that has nothing to do with Age of Sigmar. It's horror and true crime. I love the last podcast on the left. One of the Henry Zabrowski in there, he says that when you go into entertainment, and like what we do is entertainment. I think we can be open, pretty honest. Like you release entertaining battle reports and stuff like that. I entertain the masses with my gift of gab, right? Like what we do is entertainment. And they say, and he has this take that like when you get into entertainment, the minute you become an entertainer, you must always be aware that you are selling some shit for somebody else. Like you are always, and it hasn't really sunk in yet, the full weight of that, because like I'm just, like the idea of monetizing my own stuff is like still like I've done it from peer pressure. Like it's weird that people, I love you, Soren, man, but it's still weird. It's still weird to me every time one of those donations come through. I get that like, that pinch in my heart where I'm like, it's hard for me to accept that.
Yeah, and it becomes a responsibility. That is another reason why we like have. It's like, oh, now I have to do this.
Right.
This is like
Yeah.
somebody gave me money, and
well,
like, oh, I not saying I work for you, but like I owe you.
Yeah, a little bit.
You paid for something.
Yeah.
I need to do this. Where I'm like, okay, well, but it's a dance monkey.
Yeah, dance monkey. Like, no, it's true though. Like I do think that responsibility. I know you tried to like dance around it before because maybe there's a semantical understanding of what you're saying when you say responsibility. But when you say responsibility to me, I think like we do have a responsibility. There are content creators out there. I'm not saying in Age of Sigmar because I think we have a higher caliber of content creators, because our content creators, you're not. My Patreon money that the stuff that I make off of doing my show, that is my disposable income. We have such a tight budget in my life. I can't. I bought Ossiarch Bone Reapers off the strength of my content. Like that's how I got that army, and that's what's gonna buy blood, Soul Blight down the line here for me, and Slaanesh. Like that's my disposable income. The rest of my budget goes to, that.
And like I can look at us at Rerolling Ones and say we have missed opportunities, because I have a great friend of mine that our benefactor 2+ Tough. He's able to do this full time because like you have to make it a business. Yeah, where it's just like, okay, you have to try to, and then like when we like for us it just came down to all right, like we kept passing the ball of responsibility, and it was easy to put it on Shu because it was his idea. And then at the point where I'm like, all right, hey, I can help now, because I could have helped, but I was just like, I'm in front of this guy. I don't want to do the boring stuff. But I was that way when I did stand up. When I did stand up for 6 years, I was great at being on stage. I was great at being funny, connecting, all that stuff. When it came to doing the stuff that seemed like work, when I had to time out my jokes, because I was like, I can wrap up. Like, okay, what am I doing? I know how it flowed. Well, what bits are we gonna do? Or like, just the listening to yourself. I've listened to myself more in Rerolling Ones than I did when I did stand up. I wish I would, because you get used to your own voice. Because there's always that initial is that what I sound like? That high pitched voice is coming out of this 220-pound man. That little falsetto thing I'm working with, but I'm like, because to me I'm like baritone, but I'm listening to myself.
You hear yourself through the jaw, so you get it down a pitch. I just want to address one of the comments on the video from Warhammer Weekly last night, and this ties in exactly with what you're saying. I 100% love the sound of my own voice. Fucking love it. I have a great baritone. It can be super sultry when I want to. I can take the pitch out because I kind of project up a little bit more to the roof of my mouth and into like up here. I can bring it down a register. I can take it out of them. I can take it out of the nose, drop the bass in a little bit more. I love my voice. I love listening to it. So you're damn right. Commenter on video. But no. What's that?
Were you good at promos back? I said, were you good at promos back in the day?
Oh hell yeah! No, promos are my favorite part of wrestling. Absolutely, I love cutting promos. Like that like one, you're driving a narrative, right? As a storyteller, you're driving a narrative, and so when you're cutting a promo. My favorite promo I did, I was a heel. I was wrestling as a heel, and you don't get to wrestle as a heel when you're green. This is something you don't necessarily know. You Heels tend to dictate the pace of wrestling, so you can't do that green. The heel is the talk show host. Your guest is the highlight, but you're trying to manipulate that energy and carry from, I've got this bit, we want to talk about this bit, and you're just, okay, this thing we're talking about right now, responsibility. This is pretty good. I'm going to let this play out. We're going to talk about this for a little bit. In wrestling, when you're a heel, you're gonna the face is on a really good run. He's got the pops going really good. Like the audience is popping. Like they're really getting into it. And you're like, okay, now where's the part where I'm gonna get really big heat? I'm gonna like get that tension back in the match if I cut him off. If I go with like a cheap low blow, or I love the kick. Talk to the ref. Like and then like the kick. That was one of my favorites. Like because you learn to like aim for the. Because as you're turning around, you're already scouting. Because if you miss that, you're gonna tag somebody. And there is nothing like getting unexpectedly kicked in the nuts mid-wrestling and then trying to continue wrestle. It's brutal. I've taken one. Like, it's just like I'm like, stiff me with a punch to the face. I'll sell it harder for you. Nothing stops you from being in character faster than the unpredicted kick to the nuts. So, like...
I could talk about wrestling the whole time. I think like, okay, like when you were the women's champion, did you have did you raise your voice up? What were you doing there?
I did a lisp. And this is okay. This is not something in the year 2021 I would ever do again because the drag for heat and stuff like that. Like I was young. The promoter said, hey, do this. You're one of the smaller wrestlers we have.
Oh, there are things I said my first 2 years on stage that I think back on. I'm like, I can't believe I thought that was funny and that I said that in front of people, and it would get laughs. But I'm like, I would never say that about.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind. Like you've got like Velveteen Dream, and I guess Velveteen Dream got into some hot water recently, so maybe not a great example. But you have some of these like characters who are like androgynous. They're non-binary. They're playing up what used to be a pretty much exclusively a heel angle, right? And now you're getting faces with this and stuff like that, and that's really cool for wrestling. But yeah, when I was Ginger, it's like you guys are just jealous. Okay, you're not fabulous. And just I would go super the music would hit because I came up to Evanescence. There would be a pop or Barbie Girl depending. So there would be a pop right when the music hits because they don't know who the hell you are, right? And depending on if you're getting introduced first or second, you're in a bar, you'll probably never see these people again. You'll never. It probably a little bit like stand up actually. You might have your constant hecklers, but
they're not there to see you. They're there to see wrestling.
Right.
They're there to see comedy.
Right.
They're not like I'm going to unless I invited somebody. They're just there to see comedy. I was hosting a lot. I was getting to the point where I'm featuring. No, they're here to see Damon Wayans Jr. They're not here to see me open for them.
Right.
So they're and so you do have to, hey, let's get it going. Say something funny off the gate. So, okay, now I have your attention.
Yep.
Now let me take you on this ride. And then, you're allowed to go certain places you're not allowed to go because they're not there to see you.
Yeah.
You can't be the one ruining their night by saying something off color. So you keep it very PG. Hey, all right, here comes your next person.
Right, yeah. I mean, you'd get that pop for the initial music just because, and I picked my music very deliberately because that's how people meet you first if they don't know who you are. And so that Evanescence comes on, you get a pop because everyone loves Evanescence, or you'd get if it did Barbie Girl, you get laughter right away, right? So depending on what the vibe of the match was, I would play one of those two, right? So if I'm going for hard heel, it'd be Evanescence. So I play Evanescence, you get that initial pop. I come out, people see it's clearly a guy, in a cross-dress gimmick. When I had my long hair, I had the long hair. When I had the wig, I had the wig, and the wig never stayed on. But I liked it better that way. I liked that the wig would come off on that first bump or second bump, because they just used little tape.
Right?
Oh yeah, they love it. The minute that an elbow or a clothesline drops me, or just even like a scoop slam, that wig comes off the audience. It just made that faces pop twice as hard. It was I knew what I was doing. But like I said, you don't get to heel wrestle until you know the match and how how that goes. And In old school wrestling, you get 3 cheap shots in a match. 3. Old school, no more than 3. If you need 3 cheap shots, if you need more than 3, first off, if you need 3, sus. If you need more than 3 to get control of your face again, you're not a good heel. And so, like, because that match will, like, you gotta, like, it is, some of it's scripted. You know, some of it is, like, I know I'm gonna, you know, I like, you know, I meet up with you. I've never met you before. You drove all the way from Milwaukee. We're in Superior, Wisconsin. And I came over from lacrosse. Like, I have no idea.
I don't know about wrestling.
What's that?
No, I was just saying, I'm so excited because I've always want to know. Do you guys like memorize the whole match? Like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna do this.
Yeah, no, like some of these people you meet, you've never, so you're gonna have the best matches with the people you know. Like, the people you know or the people you've wrestled before, you start to build a rapport like anything else. So this one kid, Slaanesh, he was like a 16-year-old kid lying about his age to wrestle with us. Not everything that goes on in the wrestling world, by the way, is above the level. There's some shady stuff, and that's an entire podcast for another time. But we have this kid named Slaanesh. He doesn't go by that gimmick anymore. He's still wrestling. He's a great worker. I think he's still around in lacrosse. My buddy's company, RCCW, River City Championship Wrestling. If you're in the lacrosse area, Wisconsin, go check them out. They're almost always at the American Legion. There, go do that sometime. It's a great, like, $5. You're gonna have a good time. If you even remotely care about wrestling, like if you're not a wrestling fan, I probably can't sell you on it. But anyway, I mean, this kid Slaanesh, we worked several times. We're about the same size. He's a little thicker than me, more muscle tone. Like, I'm very lithe. You know, I don't, even when I start working out again, like I get trim. I don't get thick. It just, so I like wrestling him. We had a really good rapport. I remember we decided we were going to take the Tres Amigos, which is, of course, you know, 3 suplexes Eddie Guerrero used to made funny, and we were going to make it the Cinco Guerreros, or the Cinco Amigos. So it was going to be suplex, I reverse suplex, he reverses suplex. I have never been more winded in my life. I have, like, I started wrestling, I was about 19 years old, and I did that for a couple years at about 22, 23. I have, to this day, never been more winded than throwing that spot. Like, he was wrestling in his mask gimmick. I was the Dark Angel Damon Andrews, which is my main gimmick. And you go 1, 2, because, like, in the best moves, both people are working together. In fact, whoever's taking the bump is usually doing a lot more work than, you know, he's just giving me a post for a suplex usually, and I'm, like, hefting myself into the air. I'm doing a handstand, basically, so that my feet are up, and then I'm coming down with a bump. And he's just sort of guiding me through this to make sure I don't break myself. And then, you know, we get through it, trap the leg. I go, and then we get to that third one, right? So he throws 2. I block, throw 1. We come back, you know, do the leg thing. I remember by the end of it, because, you know, Guerrero famously did the legs, then he'd go back up. And by the end of it, I did first one I did the legs. Boom. Second one, legs. Roll. And, like, my legs are, like, they couldn't have kicked. It was, like, like a little off the mat around and the promoter was mad at us. He was like, why would you throw that spot? It took forever. It was, like, you were so clearly losing energy. And I'm like, yeah, but then we, you know, grab a submission. He grabs a submission afterwards. We both catch our breath. And it's just called grabbing a submission. Doesn't matter what it is. Hey, goal, arm, whatever. You just throw a submission. So he grabs a submission, and we're just like, finish. Like, you're just like, and, you know, if you're really good, you're pulling the hair, and you're like, and then you're not gonna see when I'm talking to him. Just like, awesome. that was a man. That's something I would have never done. I fell into wrestling. I just fell into it. I had an interest in watching wrestling. My mom was a huge wrestling fan, so I think in a weird way, that's sort of like my sort of like weird mommy issues always made me kind of like mystify it, if that makes sense. Like, this is something my mom, who became a stranger to me, something she liked. And I remember her stories of meeting Andre the Giant and stuff, and just, like, you know, being enamored with this. And I've always been a storyteller. It always comes to, yeah. So, man, I went on for wrestling. Like you said, we could probably do this all night. So,
yeah, totally good. Okay, all right, yeah. Hold on. All right, let's get to age 6 more.
Responsibility was how this all started, and I think you do have a responsibility once you have that arrogance to throw yourself out there. Like, hey, I'm gonna make stuff, and I'm gonna sell something for somebody else with my excitement, whether it's beers at a bar or someone now decides to buy a Heated Knights of Slaanesh battletome. Like I'm always cognizant of the responsibility I have that I say stuff, and it may not be huge, it may not be world changing, but it's going to change somebody's opinion. And I think that you do, once you hit that level, you got to be like, okay, you just got to take some responsibility.
There's that, and there's thing you want to be humble, you want to be self-aware. Being self-aware is like
Huge.
a lost art. You definitely want to be self-aware where you're at, and realize when you make a mistake, and also when you do something good, be like, okay, I did that. That was good. I enjoyed that. Hopefully they enjoy that, and you get the good response. Like I definitely love meeting people in real life.
Yes.
Just because it's just you get that energy from them. You're like, yeah, you can, you get a private message on Facebook or whatever, and you're like, yes, thank you. I really appreciate that, or on Instagram. But like, and so there's three of us, which is luckily like I don't read the. I'm terrible at Discord, so that's one thing. But like the comments, I'm like, I'll get the gist like from Brent and Shu. They'll say because they read it, and like anybody can comment. Like I remember, it's still to this day it annoys me that this happened. Mark had his wife, who's a lovely lady, and like she was in one of the sketches, and people like were trashing her in the comments. And it was probably just, two people that I don't know, but I'm like, am I punishing because those two people comment? I have to risk seeing that by reading the comments. People, oh, I love that. That was funny, whatever. But like, I just prefer that face to face. Like what you do. Well, I like what you do. Let's hang out. Let's talk.
Yeah.
What's your name, John? Hey, John. What do you do? Like, get to know these people, the people who watch the content you put out, and like, okay, what do we connect on this thing? Maybe we have other things in common. Hey, man, we're cool. Hit me up. Here's my number.
Yeah.
Now we're locked in. We're friends.
Yeah. 1,000%. I like that Age of Sigmar gives you that common ground to meet people, and then as you develop, like you're like, hey, we both have these other interests in common. Then you're like, boom, we're friends. We're not just like AOS like buddies. We are friends. Yeah. Like,
man, I was a fan of like just like Tom and Vince, and being able to check like what's made me really like, oh, Tom is a good dude. When I saw him with his wife on one of the episodes, I was like, oh man, he's like he has kids, loving family, good dude. Talk to him, kid. Sometimes he'll say some stuff that I'm like, oh, this is trash, this sucks, whatever. But like that's the way he views the game. But getting to know him through the content creator chat we're in, I'm like, this dude's good. Vince is cool. Like, oh, these guys are not real just people. Like people who I used to put on when I went to bed. Yeah. Now they're like they're your peers. Then they become your friends. Then you're texting them you're talking trash about football games and sucky basketball teams and things like that. And you're like, oh man, yeah. We're talking about wrestling. You become, and then you like, I'm friends with Craig. Take Over Mars.
Yeah.
We message each other about Rocco. Rocco taught me how to play Tabletop Simulator.
Yeah.
And these are just people in this awesome community that you become friends with.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's one of the things that I part of me is like, I mean, obviously Age of Sigmar wasn't around when I was younger, but man, I would have had such an easier time making friends if AOS was around back then.
Oh man.
Like all my it's getting serious with like all my friends that I tell stories to Molly, my partner, and most of the stories I tell are about my friends from the Age of Sigmar community now, and I'm just like referring to them as if she should know who they are and as if we've known them for years. It's like oh, Dave or Travis messaged me, or Craig was saying this. Craig is still Mars to me because it's just like, I think like me, he gets a good persona is legit, but like the I don't know, like just I find myself like just speaking in super familiar terms with these people that have really become Soren, have really become a part of my life, in a broader sense. And I don't know, yeah, no, it's great stuff. But speaking of Age of Sigmar, look at bad transition. Yeah. But speaking of bad transition, this would be the low blow the heel delivers. I lost control of the match, so I have to like go with like one of the cheap. Yeah, you got to go with one of the cheap ways of getting it back under. So you learn segues.
You got 2 left.
I got 2 left. That's right. So speaking of Age of Sigmar, transition segue. You got your first game in with Slaanesh. We were kind of talking about that a little bit.
And there's things you got because I have a bunch of older demonettes, the Juan Diaz ones. Because they were there still when I played fantasy, so a bunch of those, and I was like, okay, I'm getting in Slaanesh. When the book, I played a bunch of games before the book. They didn't have the book. Then the first book came out. I played them once, and I was like, this, like, it was hard to take your foot off the gas. They were, and like we were trying to record casual stuff, and they were just like a Slaanesh army just with a couple keepers or a keeper. Was just like, oh, you're fighting last. I'm gonna kick your butt. I'm gonna pile in attack twice. Yeah, I'm gonna reroll my casting with the epitome. It was just a very good army, and so rightfully so. They got hit with the nerf, and then it became and I should have brought them back then, but I didn't because I didn't know a new book was coming. That was I was like, wow, they just had a book like maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago.
About a year ago. Yeah.
So new book came out, and I'm excited for it. It definitely, you'll see him on the channel a lot more. I'll say that.
So why Slaanesh? What dragged you to Slaanesh? This, like, because it sounds like you had a little bit of a false start there, like almost, and you're like, nah. Yeah. What happened this time? What was different?
Initially, they were like a favorite army of mine. They were right up there. And I talked about this before. Like, Stormcast was originally just the army that came in the box. I didn't know, it was just like something I had because I bought the box. And then I fell in love with that army. And then Slaanesh was my main army. And then playing Slaanesh with the initial first book, and just how, I don't like I don't want to play KO. I don't want to play Zinch right now. Just because in me, I don't like to play the best. But I did buy at the start of the game. They're really good. But that was a great deal. All this stuff, it was a great deal. I couldn't pass it up. So all the time, one thing I'll keep doing, which is I have a closet of shame that is pretty nasty. But
you've got a really good curated. You got the 3 IKEAs there, the 3 clear.
Oh
cabinets.
yeah. And I could fit like 5. So I have and I was like, oh, I can. What's it? It's a studio army. It's for the channel. It's for the channel. And we play the same 6 armies, so it doesn't even know. But anyway, so that was a side note. Yeah, and so getting back into Slaanesh initially brought me to. I had a bunch from Warhammer Fantasy Battles, because that was the army I played during 6th edition. And so I had just a bunch of stuff that I got a job at UPS. That's why I'm a UPS driver. That's what I do. And I was 315 pounds at the time. I was just not athletic at all. It's not like I could go wrestle with you. I was not in shape. Yeah. I went from playing video games, playing Warhammer, and drinking like 2-liter Dr. Pepper a day, just eating whatever. And then I went from doing that to moving my body for the first time in years. And so I started losing weight. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, hey, I'm losing weight. And I was like, well, why don't I try to lose weight? Why don't I watch what I eat? Why don't I work out? And so I went from 315 down to, I went to 205. So lost 110 pounds. And then I started getting attention from girls, and Warhammer, I don't need this anymore. I'm going on dates and I'm going out to the club. Yeah. And so, but I still had all those Warhammer stuff. And so when I was 36 or whatever, and then my brother was like, hey, we should play Warhammer again. And then you go to the store and like, what is Age of Sigmar? And I don't get it at all. I'm just curious. And so I still had all that Slaanesh stuff. So I was like, I'm going to play Slaanesh. And I played them, and then they came out with a book. It was too good. And then they came out with this book, which is not as good, but it's different. And so I would say it's not as good. It's still fine.
Yeah.
I won. I mean, spoiler, I won the game I played.
Oh, you weren't supposed to spoil.
It's different. I like it. I do love the way they changed depravity, because there were a couple things that happened. So he was playing Khorne, and he failed his prayer, and Khorne punished the priest, right?
Who was playing Khorne? Was it Shu?
The opponent. It was a guy named Nick who I invited to play.
Okay.
So he got zapped by Khorne. Khorne was not pleased with his prayers because he failed. He rolled like a 3 and then a 1. I got depravity from him getting punished from his god. I did like that. And like I love, I split up my attacks because it always works. Yeah. And so you split your attacks. So like, oh, this finally repay. It feels like it was made just for me. Like just like how they screwed you with the Soul Blight stuff, we're going after with the White Knight. That was just going after
they
you.
specifically at me. They were like giving me the middle finger and trolling me, and appropriately so. Honestly, like good game. Like that was like the moment, like my Captain Hook, like good form, Peter. Like good form, GW. Like good form. Like just kind of got to lean back. Like game recognizes game. Respect. Like I respect a good troll. You got me, GW. You got me. Like
you got me.
Tip
They
of the hat.
made the new depravity just for me.
They made the new depravity.
Yeah, because I split my attacks, and so I do a little bit of damage to a lot of different things, and now I'm rewarded. Thank you, GW. I appreciate that.
Like
so I got I read it how that worked, and but then when you play it, I'm like, oh, I see how that works. Just like I read how the new locus of diversion works, and I'm like, oh, it's not as good because you used to be able to make people attack last, but then I played it and realized not making somebody be able to pile in, how big that is. When I was fighting, I was going against this big unit, and I'm like, guess what? You're not piling in. That means you're fighting me with that one guy, where I am going all at your unit to wear you down. And now I'm alive because my save's not great. And I'm kind of a glass cannon, but now you can't pile in and hurt me. As before, say I make you attack last, say I don't do that well against you, you're going to be able to hurt me. It makes you more defensive. Sure, it doesn't work against characters because they're just one unit.
Right.
But making a something massive, and say you're trying to stay a half inch away or whatever, maybe you don't pile in all the way, so you restrict them even more. So just that one guy, even if he's on a 25 mil base and he's surrounded by guys, you're just getting that one attack in. And so I think that is, I would say it's not a downgrade, it's a side grade. It's still good, still really good, but also making somebody fight last is good. But in the world where people were fighting first, it kind of was this eliminates that. That doesn't hurt you.
But I think Games Workshop completely is just moving away from the activation wars. Like message received, they're like, "Yep, we're gonna move away from stuff like that." I think that's just the state of the game. I think it's undeniable that Locust got worse, but like it couldn't stay that the way it was before, and Slaanesh get to move on and be a more interesting army. It couldn't stay the way it was before. It just couldn't. Like if it did, this book would look even different still, and I don't know that people are happy to play it again, like you've kind of illustrated. Like playing the best thing, especially something that comes with that. I mean, you almost start to feel dirty. I remember like lining up my Depraved Drove once, this poor Skaven player at my LGS, and I was still proxy, like I was using a Gorgon as a keeper of secrets, but like he knew, like I'm like, hey, I'm testing this, type thing. I turn 0. Messaged him. He's one of those people who really, really wants to get into Age of Sigmar, but that whole store is 40K, and so like he's just down to play any game at any time, right? And I remember like beating him, just like essentially turn 1. It was over turn 1, but we still had turn 2 to go, and I'm like, all right, so like I'm never playing Depraved Drove. Like I felt dirty, and I like kind of walked away from the table. And I switched. That's when I started going like really. I kind of pivoted into going really hard into like proper Beast of Chaos, because I felt dirty walking away from that Slaanesh game with them as Depraved Drove. And yeah, go ahead.
How many armies do you have? Because I associate you with Nagash,
yeah,
Swagash, and Bone Reapers.
Yep.
And so, what else do you have besides that?
Yeah, so I've got on my top shelf is actually that's mostly it's Nagash, but then Bone Daddies. My LON is on the next shelf down. My LON is very big. My LON collection, actually, a couple of these boxes, this box here, that's all LON stuff. I've got an army carrier right here off camera. That's all LON stuff, and then I've got my other armor carrier back there. That's Bone Daddies. So I've got, those are my 2 main armies. I had a bunch of Nighthaunt stuff. I moved it. I'm probably going to be buying back into Nighthaunt, though. I have regrets. And then I've got my Beast of Chaos. So I've got a good, healthy amount of Beast of Chaos. I run them as Slaanesh a little bit. I've started collecting Slaanesh. You can see my keeper right here on the shelf, right there.
Oh, yes, I do.
So I've got a keeper right up there. right on top of some God Eater thing. God Tear thing. I don't know what it is. I got it from the Adepticon stuff, and then some Zangors and just some other stuff. Just that's my pile of shame right here. It's about to grow.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
got a bunch more Slaanesh coming.
I these so
I guess I
I was looking
technically
at
have
Lumineth.
a Slaanesh army if you count my Beasts of Chaos. It pulls double duty, but I'm moving away from that. I want my beasts to stay beasts, and my I might take some of my extra because I got a bunch of extra Ungor. You just when you're a Beasts of Chaos player, they hand you like 100 Ungor, just like they just give you like just 100 Ungor. I'm like
There you go.
I guess I have
Please,
100
what do I do
Ungor
with
now. Yeah, so some of those Ungor might show up in Slaanesh. I'm probably still going to do some Depraved Drove stuff, but I have enough, probably about 3,000, 4,000 points of Beast of Chaos, much of it unassembled. That's
I'm
probably
curious,
staying, like, I'm going to split that. I'm going to go, like, this is pure Beasts, period, end of story. And then the extra stuff, I'm going to have, like, a little contingent of Depraved Drove, because I do think, despite the nerf for the tapping sixes, needing Hedonites now, I still think Depraved Drove has play in Slaanesh. It just has quality battle line, and that's a good missing piece of the puzzle for Slaanesh is quality battle line. So
I'm curious if we of course will need to get the Beast of Chaos book, but the effect of the Blood Fiend, are they Blood Fiends?
yeah, or the Slangord Fiend Bloods, those.
Yeah. I'm curious what they will do in Beast of Chaos because that's all. That was my whole one of my gripes about when that book came off because I played Beast of Chaos in 5th edition of Fantasy.
Yeah,
and it was awesome because they had 2 wounds each when they first came out. It was really dope. But when that book came out, I was like, this seems like it's not done.
Mm-hmm.
And when you understand that, especially with the Lumineth Realmlord book, like sometimes we're going to get not done books because like when I'm looking at the Beast of Chaos, I'm like, okay, there's Zangor. That means there should be in my head there should be gore for gore for each of the gods.
Cornagor, Pestigor. Yeah, they should
so
have
now we at least have some representative with that book, so I can see that happening with the other 2 gods, and and so like it's one of those things where when you accept that we're playing a living game,
yes, super importantly, a living
the game is constantly living. So there's the outrage. Oh, they gave us half a book with and I'm like when I do that voice, I'm obviously trying to make fun of these people, but if that's what they feel, who am I to say that? But I accept it. Like, okay, so they came out with a book for Lumineth, and then they came out with more stuff later, and they released another book.
Yeah.
And I can be mad about that, or I can be like, all right, like, and I can also like vote with my dollar and not play Lumineth.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, okay, I'm fine with that. That's the way they did it. I don't ask what their excuse was, but it's just like, okay, I equated it to, okay, I would be mad if I bought the book maybe, but it gave me a chance to paint the stuff, and now there's more stuff.
As far as books go, I have my take on books, and like this is probably one of my more negative takes, and when I'm trying to be positive, I think how they approach book releases, just the physical copy of the book. I'm not even talking rules. I'm not talking layout. I'm not talking any of that stuff. Where they put the points, I don't. Mm-hmm. That's not this take. I just think that how they physically release books is antiquated. Like I bought Soulbound. I got 7 download copies for it before they even printed the book and shipped it to me. I pre-ordered my copy of Soulbound the RPG, and they're like, here's 7 download codes, go wild. And I'm like, why? Gee, thank you for at pre-order. I was able to download it. I have my Vampire the Masquerade books I just picked up. They have a little sticker in the back jacket. Here's your code to download your PDF. Like, when you're looking at like the digital age, there's a way that they could get rid of some of the bad feels around printing that second LRL book.
Yes.
If they're just like, oh, you guys bought the first one? People like, what's your IBN? Or like, crack open your thing. You should have a code in there or something like that. And they're like, you bought it? Here you go. You get the digital copy of the newer, bigger one free. Boom. Nothing. Look, people wouldn't complain then. Like we rarely as a community. Go ahead.
And I'm sometimes I feel like I'm like an apologist. No, I'll come off critical of GW. I think their online app stuff is awful.
Yeah, I don't think you're in the shill apologist category that some people get. I think there is some like there are some folks out there that would probably read that way, but I mean, you guys come off as passionate, genuine for the game that you love. I don't like. There are people out there who just like never have something bad to say, and you're like, is that really you? Is that really how you are? That make your kind of radar go like that? Doug actually, I know the joke is that he's a shill, like he makes his own memes and stuff like that. Doug has said point blank, he's like, I have negative feelings about stuff. He's like, I just don't make content about that. He's like, if I start to feel bad about the thing, then I just don't do that. I go and do something that excites me. And I'm like, as a legit businessman now, like he's thrown his eggs into this basket. He has to do it his best to be able to continue to make the content he wants to make. Like he has to. Some people need to be. Some people. I think it's more of a reflection on others when they say that you suck for being positive about something than it is on the person they're saying sucks for being positive. I struggle with negativity, period. I'm nihilistic and sardonic, constantly sarcastic, and like seeing the worst of humanity as a human. I don't want the thing I go to be happy again to become a reflection of that anymore. I'm going to shoot people straight. I'm going to be honest about what I feel. But I'm not going to sit here and make the show about how disappointed I am in Slangors. Like, I could do a 3-hour show on how angry I am that Slangors are bad. I could, but how do I reconcile that to not come off as a shill? I say, I think it sucks. I'm upset about it. But I'm not going to make a freaking 3-hour show about it. I'm going to move on to something that makes me happier, like talking about wrestling and what I do like about the book, right? Like, and I think that's the responsible thing to do, personally, for me. Everyone
like,
has.
I just like, that is that's great. The fact that you can see that about yourself, recognize it, and like, I'm choosing not to do that. I have these feelings, but I'm choosing to, So I'm like, the things with me, I'm like, that sucks, but I'm not upset about it because I'm like, I work hard not to let this game upset me. Where in this game, you get that negative play experience. I fought INFD Kid the other day, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, and I had some memes made. I was so like, oh my gosh, I just tried like, okay.
Yeah.
I remember being like watching other content creators when we were first starting, and watching somebody whinging on camera about their army or moaning about this stuff, and I'm like, I did not enjoy that. I'm definitely going to not. I'll be, I have these feelings just like you. I'm not always positive, but I'm mostly positive, and because I try to surround myself with positive people, and it's like one of those things where, it's like sometimes you are who you hang out with, and so I've had that in my life where there's extra negative, everything sucks. And especially when you're in this community and you're getting all these different chats, and then you get to, I was in this chat where they're just harping on the prices, and to me, it's like an expensive game remains expensive, man. It's gonna be expensive the whole time. So
I'm one of the people who was mad about the Sons of Behemoth price. I think the model price is ludicrous, but I think it's foreshadowing a price hike in the minis, and it's like. You said something earlier, vote with your dollar. The only thing Games Workshop's really, you could make a 6-hour video about the prices. Like I could easily make a 27-hour RantCast about anything that's pissing me off. Literally anything. I will come out. I won't have a PowerPoint because I'm not that like committed, but I'll come out with like a list of notes, like this. My camera's like washing it out. I've got dates and times here for some stuff written down. Like I will come up with 27 hours of notes. I used to do a series when I was still at games journalism at various conventions like Anime Milwaukee and ACEN.
A wrestler and now a journalist. Why am I just finding out?
No, I used to do a bit called Your Video Game Sucks. So I do a panel. It was Your Video Game Sucks and Your Video Game Still Sucks, because sometimes I get like double booked, and so I'd have to have 2 panels. So when I did that, it was based on, there's a Something Awful thread called Your Band Sucks. And every week, like you'd submit like Radiohead, or like you'd say this stuff, and then like the gentleman whose like handle eludes me would write an essay on why that band sucks. And and just like a full like a persuasive essay, right? Like premise, statement, 6 sentences about why it sucks, and then each sentence becomes a paragraph unto itself, persuading you on why all those things sucks. Paragraph for detractors, paragraph wrapping it up, closing statement. Super classic. Like loved it. It's in that self-aware humor. I'm a big Tool fan, and he did Tool one time, like Tool, do Tool, and he did it, and it was one sentence: "Your songs are too long." Like I'll never forget that, because the humor in that is brilliant, right? Like, because normally he's doing these like diatribes, these dissertations on why a band sucks, and then Tool, whose music is too long, as the criticism, he writes the shortest review ever. I remember that stuck with me, and that really influenced how I went to college, and we'll talk about my journalism experience when we get to gatekeeping a little bit. And I went to I went to school, and that always kind of stuck with me. Actually, I was in college when I was reading Something Awful. Come to think of it, I'm that old. God. That always stuck with me, and I remember, like, as I became like trying to get into journalism, trying to like bring together all the things that I like. And I'm like, I'll write about video games, and I'm a journalist, and yada yada. I have some journalism courses. I want to write. I want to get paid for it. It's what I've always wanted to do. I remember that sticking with me, and then going like, Jim Sterling is really good at like the super taking the piss out of like the video game industry, and I wasn't quite that. There was this like humor to everything I always did, where I was making fun of it, and I did Your Video Game Sucks, and I would take the first half would be like teaching people with a PowerPoint about video game design and some of the stuff, and then the second half would be roasting. So they would the audience would tell me a video game, and I would just roast it for like 5 minutes and why it sucked. And naturally people would tell me games that I like, and then I have to roast a game I like. But
it's part of what you're trying to do here.
Yeah,
there is a big audience for that.
Yeah.
Like, as far as like there is the audience out there who wanted somebody to take something down, be hypercritical about it, and that's just not my audience.
I think that's most of the internet. I truly do. I think most people want to hear the scathing takedown takes, and I didn't want to do that anymore. There's several reasons why I'm not a games journalist anymore. I can't keep that energy forever. I get locked in, like I said, in reality, I'm kind of a negative guy. I get locked in that at work, then at my hobby, at the thing I do. Like, I remember playing how many video games I have played that have been ruined forever for me because I have to review this now. I have to play this, say what's good about it, and say what's bad about it. And the internet algorithm loves it when you hate something. And so, I have to highlight the negativity to sound like I'm a critic. I'm a legit critic because I could find something wrong with even the most loved game. There is never a shortage of flaws in stuff. In fact, in design, flaws or bugs as features is an important aspect of them. But there's never a shortage of them, and it's your tone and how you approach it. Yeah, it's called RantCast. I'll get on my soapbox and I'll roast something every now and then. But I can't lock in that mentality and that headspace forever.
Yeah.
It just becomes toxic.
Yeah, you see that the top 10 worst this and that and this, what's the best? I don't ever. I try to watch my language because language is important. I never try to say I hate anything. Because
you're a better man than me, Jack.
Hate requires a lot of emotion. I can dislike something. Dislike just means you don't like.
Yeah. Fair.
But hate, man, I'm not putting enough energy into hate.
Yeah, no, that's fair. No, hate is it's a bad time. I try to focus on the love and the passion. We've seen what hate does when it gets out of control, right? I don't know. I don't want to live in that space personally. I might hyperbolically say hate though. So you're stronger.
Yeah,
you're more powerful than me. I can't do it. I hate what they did to the Slangor War Skull. that bracketing, bringing it back.
Let's look at that War Skull. What did they do? I was gonna go buy some. I'm gonna make me change my mind.
Yeah, see, and now I've become the monster. But no, I mean, you might change your mind, not buy them if you were going to. That's the whole vote with your dollar thing. If you're upset with how Games Workshop is, you can make 1,000 angry videos, and I do think that they listen and they hear about it, and the aggregate of the community I mean, look at that 1 point survey they did. Remember when they did the big point survey on Facebook? That very clearly influenced how they changed points. A bunch of Stormcast Eternal units that did nothing wrong went up in cost because they listened. Like, of course, Games Workshop's going to listen. But if you want to really get them to listen, it's monetarily. Don't buy the things that you're not happy with. Don't buy, if you're really mad about this LRL book, this second wave book. And me, I buy books as collector items from Games Workshop. The thing is invalid the second I have it in my hands. There's an FAQ already about to be printed telling me this thing is wrong. I'm gonna have to grab my stack of Post-it notes. Oh man, I'm out. I gotta get more. I'm gonna have to grab my stack of Post-it notes like it's 1995, tear them out, and put them in my book like I do for GMing. How like my battletome and my monster manual, it's just riddled with Post-it notes sticking out of it. Like I buy it because I want to say, hey, I like this army. Thank you. Like, I will buy this extra thing, and then it'll go on my shelf, and I won't even crack the spine because I'm going to read the PDF on the internet. Like, that's... But if you're really cross about this LRL thing, it's weird to have gotten an entire, another half of your army. I'm trying to put myself in other people's shoes, trying to have empathy, compassion, those sort of things. If I got another half of Ossiarch Bone Reapers, and that means I get another Battletome, I'd be ecstatic. Like, I'd be so happy. I'm like, hell yeah, more the thing I love.
Yeah.
Maybe it was too soon. Maybe it's the timing. Okay. Is it the timing? It's got to be the timing.
Yeah, maybe it's the timing, but if they would have just said it's another Stormhost, because Stormcast, this happened to twice.
Yeah.
If the Vanguard Raptors aren't in the first book, I don't think the game was as popular as it is now.
No,
where people were just thankful in the beginning, like, sweet, more stuff. But theoretically, this has happened before. They just got a new Stormhost, and and it came. I think it was longer than the first, where it was just the first Stormcast book that didn't have the Vanguard Raptors, or I forget what it was called, and then them getting the Vanguard Chamber might have been less time than the Lumineth, and then the new Lumineth Chamber.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I don't. But
it's more popular because we used to talk about how awesome the community was, because the game had a rough launch.
I think it is.
But now more people. You're gonna have, the more people you get, you're gonna have great people. You're gonna have bad people. It's just it's gonna happen. I'm not saying people who are upset about it are bad. I don't want to say that, but they just, like, as before, people were just like, oh cool, we're getting more content. Now it's like, all right, I feel like, I can point this happened to me once. Like, I used to be really into MMA, like watch all of you.
Snitbag, it's an elf thing. That's what it is. It's just an elf thing. You used to be an MMA. Sorry, I had to.
Yeah. I would travel around. I used, I'd go. I have a short story I'll tell. It's a funny story, but I used to travel around. I went to Vegas a bunch. Been to Toronto, been to Oakland. Obviously, are you in MMA at all?
Off and on. I loved boxing growing up. And MMA kind of like defeated boxing as like the new the new sweet science.
Anderson Silva?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, any of those, like the earlier stuff when they would still fight in the gi and stuff, and as that early transitioning into like the sort of trunks and the gloves, like as that was going on, that's about when I was at the peak of my interest in MMA. Every now and then, I'll get into it depending on the fighters or whatever.
Well, there's a fighter I think you probably love named Chael Sonnen. He pro wrestling trash talks.
Nice.
And Anderson Silva was this Brazilian guy, very soft spoken. Didn't speak a lot of English. And Chael Sonnen was this brash American wrestler, would talk trash. He took promos that superstar Billy Graham would do. He would just go up there and cut a promo. And
Conor McGregor is from the same camp. Yeah, Conor McGregor is a fantastic promoter. That's what he's doing when he's cutting a promo. He's promoting. That's what a promo comes from. He's promoting that fight by just talking shit. Go on.
Yeah, exactly. And I always got disappointed that after the fight when they would hug, I'm like, no, I was believing. I was believing in kayfabe. I thought you guys hated each other.
Yeah.
He was talking about your wife. I would hate that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I went to see their first fight in Oakland. I just want to point out, I'm a big MMA fan. But the first time that, and I'm same personality where I'm like, hey, I kind of, whatever served to me, I'm like, this is cool. There was a pay-per-view with Mark Coleman. He was an old original UFC champion, and Randy Couture. And they were both in their 40s when they fought. And I watched the fight, And then all the trash talk, all the hype, and the fight was just two old men fighting, and it looked like it. Not saying old men can't fight, but these guys. And I was like, I feel like I got duped.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe Lumineth players, they're so into it and like, hey, I just spent all this money, and now I didn't. It might have been a problem where COVID hit too, so there was no
Yeah.
tournament scene. I didn't play with my toys. I painted up all the spearmen, and now these great swords are coming out that might make these spearmen useless. I want all great swords in my army.
Yeah.
So I bought these things I didn't even get to play with.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think that there is a something to like our lockdown or our quarantine, modifying the emotions of people. You talked about like the community's growing. That's 1,000% correct. It's casting a wider net, so you're gonna get just a more variance of types of personalities in the game. I don't think that's a bad thing because that means that the game's growing. The game's gonna have more money. I think it makes it twice as important that people who are content creators, community fixtures or whatever, even if you're just like a strong Twitter presence, whatever. I do think it's even more important that we kind of hold the line on trying to keep this community positive, inclusive, and better. Like lead by example. Be that good, positive force in this community you want to see, not the kind of shitty 40K stereotype. Not that all 40K players are like that. Just when I say the 40K stereotype, you already have that player in your mind. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Like that to be that positivity, to lead by example, I think it's okay to genuinely feel how you feel about anything. It's important to caveat it though, especially on the internet. Like the internet leaves everything up to interpretation. Everything is implied. Nothing is explicit. So you got to be pretty explicit in your candor and how you say how you feel. Hey, this is how I feel. I'm upset about this. Nothing wrong with that. You should talk about that because the flip. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just agreeing with you wholly, and it kind of goes into a topic I wanted to talk about, where it was just like when the winter FAQ came out, right? And I just, of course, and it's what you consume on. If you're looking on Twitter, it's where you choose to consume, who you're following.
Yeah.
But just I felt there was just a level of how dare they do this to me.
Yeah.
That I felt like, man, people are taking this really, really personal.
Yeah.
And then I remember Tom Lyon said something to me. He's like, well, I'm passionate about things I care about. Because I would always be like, why do people care so much?
Yeah.
Then I started thinking, well, who am I to judge if that's how they consume their game? If the game, and they put so much of themselves, I can't tell them that they're wrong.
Yeah.
For doing it that way. I just have to say, I don't do it that way. And I can't be mad at you just because we're different. If you choose to do that way, and like you realize, like, okay, because it was like, there was this whole thing between Doug and Honest Wargamer, right?
Yeah,
and
there's always a thing between Doug and the Honest Wargamer, though.
Yeah, and there can be like one is like his positive meters way up, and this guy's negative meters up, and they can just like, and then you were like, well, I can't be mad at Honest. Doug's my board. That's who I ride with, and I'm loyal.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't, if that's the way he chooses to enjoy his game.
Mm-hmm.
I can't be like, you're doing it wrong for, I just think like the way he comes off to me, I can't, like, fine, I just won't consume his thing, even though I like his stuff. But I'm like, the stuff that maybe is too negative, too, like, I can't care as much, but I can't be mad if somebody cares more than I do.
Right. I mean, that's the winter FAQ. I had to like take some time to formulate because like I was so checked out of Age of Sigmar. I think I've mentioned this on my show a couple times before. I did a little short video for just YouTube. I had no emotions. I was a blank. I was we're talking. I'm in the throes of my seasonal depression right now. I'm coming off. I just saw the 8-year-old photo of me hanging out with my brothers for the first time in years at my mom's funeral, and there's I'm throwing up the horns, and we're happy to be around each other. But like I know, like in that photo, we're me and my brothers are hanging out for the first time in years, and I'm super happy in that photo. But I know, looking at it, I'm like, we just had my mom's funeral hours before this moment, and I'm like, and last night, going on Warhammer Weekly, I got to be in business mode. Like, I got to be Mephisto. I get to talk about Warhammer. Like I get to like hide the feelings. The minute that show came down, I spiraled. because I saw the photo before the show went live, and I'm like, okay, nope, push it down. Do what you always do, Andrew. Be healthy, bottle up the emotions, man. After what
bottle it up. And start getting
afterwards,
migraines or whatever. I don't care. Don't worry
yeah,
about that stuff.
yeah. After the show was over, though, like, and I had nothing to do, I basically like kind of lost it. I tell that story to point out how little I cared about the FAQ. I had so much other crap going on this time of year. I haven't played in a tournament since PACA in January last year. I haven't seen my friends in longer. I haven't hung out with anybody. Like, I'm on a freaking island and isolated as far as I possibly could be, and I couldn't care less about the FAQ. But for some people, it was the thing getting them through the season. They were looking forward to this, fixing one thing in the world for them. So, like, the world is unraveling. Okay, cool. Like, I got to do my work. I got to do my job. I got to pay my bills. Have to do all that. But at least this one thing that makes me happy, they're going to fix it. They're going to fix this problem. I think we displaced a lot of our feelings as a community. We, the global we, the collective we. I think we displaced a lot of emotions into our game to be like, this one thing can be fixed. This one thing can be right in the world. And then it wasn't. And the emotional pendulum that swung back and forth between how people felt in that moment, I didn't get it initially, and then I did. And when I did, I got angry and I got upset. Not personally, but I got mad watching people tell my friends that they can't feel some kind of way about something. And that's the thing that kind of bothers me in the end. It's not how you personally feel, even like, the unit's trash, right? Like, that's kind of innocuous when it gets right down to it. Like, it's from a content creator, I try not to do that because I don't want to influence how people, do stuff. I know that I do inevitably with how I talk and how I do stuff. I know, but I try not to use my powers for evil. Try not to, right? But there's a certain kind of audacity that goes beyond saying, I don't like this model or I don't like this army. A little bit earlier on, Chaos Wargaming was like, dwarves are trash, elves are trash. Like, and he just went through it. He said a bunch of stuff was trash. Sincerely, a Greenskins player, right? And I'm like, that kind of stuff is funny. Like, I love that, But in that moment on the FAQ, it wasn't just, oh, the FAQ sucks. It was, why are you feeling some kind of way about the FAQ? That right there bothered me more than anything else. I don't, like, it may be irrational how I feel about stuff from time to time, and how other people feel about their things. But how dare you tell them how to feel? Yeah. Actions, what you do with your emotions, is what makes you human. We can't all be flying off the cuff just like, I feel this way, so I'm going to do my first reaction to my feelings, because then you can be violent, you can be morose, you can be all kinds of different stuff. But it's that, but just the audacity to tell people you can't feel how you feel. How dare you?
And then, that is perfect. Like, because you realize, like, I'm being a hypocrite if I tell them they can't feel how, like, they're feeling their feelings wrong. Like, because I just felt like there was a lot of, how dare they to the company. Like, there was a sense of entitlement. And, like, I always wanted, like, this is a crazy time. This is the craziest time since World War II. And then, so the points didn't come out, but it also, like you pointed out, like, people were looking forward to that with hope. But I always, like, I work for a big company, and then when you're on the inside and you see how it works, and you're like, what people on the outside think how it works. So I know Rob has been in there, so he knows more than a lot of us. And so, like, and I always remember that, like, hey, he knows, like, what's probably possible. Because I'm at a company, like, I think we could do this better, but there are those ties and handcuffs and people who get paid way more than me making decisions that I don't agree with. But and it's just like, all right, just try to control what I control as a person, control what I can consume. And if I don't agree with somebody, it's not my job to tell them they're wrong, or to now have to battle this person because I'd rather find our commonalities than say this one thing we disagree on. now we have to have
that
feel
defines
some
our
kind of way about each
relationship. Yeah, that
other.
one disagreement now defines your relationship with someone. Like
Mhm.
that feels a backwards way to approach human relations. Like I accept that I will always be abrasive to a certain type of person. You know, I can't change that and them. I just have to change how I approach stuff. You know, like the only thing you can ultimately control at the end of the day really is you, right?
Mhm.
Control yourself in a way, and even then, like in that knee jerk emotional response, you kind of almost can't control yourself paradoxically,
Yeah, yeah. You
right?
have to,
Like you're
you
like,
have to
I
you
can't
feel
help
that
that
way. How does it feel it?
yeah,
Then you're like, okay, let
yeah,
me analyze this feeling I'm having
yeah,
before I spark up. You know, just like you said, you that could be a violent thing.
yeah,
Like I have violent relatives, and I'm like, you jumped right to fighting him. All he did was to, you know, he took the parking spot that you thought was yours, he thought was his, and now you're fighting him. Like, but we're built different.
mm-hmm.
You know, like we that could have been handled so many different ways,
Mm-hmm.
but you know, you have to realize everybody's different, and you have to analyze. Okay, they feel that way. I feel this way. Let me try to, you know, you know, like we were saying, just this doesn't need to escalate more than it needs to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, find we have to realize what's important in our life and what hierarchy you have for you.
Yeah,
If somebody else doesn't match up with that, okay, that's fine. But you can still enjoy each other's company, still be friends,
yeah,
or all these things. Just where we get to the state where like, oh, you think this way, I think this way. We're not only like we don't have to do now. We're enemies. That's like society. Like there's some like I don't even want to get into that part.
right,
Like
yeah, yeah. No, that's getting even heavier than Warhammer. Um,
yeah, I need. I've been drinking a little bit. I gotta use the bathroom. So
no, you're cool,
go
dude.
rant.
Yeah, yeah, I got this rant. I'll catch up on chat, gang. Um, Razor Tree says GW is still giving us an amazing product during a pandemic, crazy polar vortexes, insane cultural times, and more. I will say it, GW is killing it right now, even with the mistakes factored in. I mean, everyone's doing the best with what they got, right? Like literally everybody. It is all right to expect more from the companies you consume the products of, but the best way to do that is in how you approach and consume that product, how you control yourself in that environment, right? Um, I don't think giving the middle finger to playtesters or like shouting someone down on Twitter is the best way to try to affect what Games Workshop gonna do, right? Um, yeah, I don't know. Like it's the world's just bigger than that. Manzak, unfortunately, it's a product of DGAF. You're still you'll still buy. My company makes loads of weird decisions because they think they know better. Not entering in countries or factories to produce because their numbers don't meet what they think they deserve. Where other companies like Four Hands, RH, West Elm all go to these other places, and they are beyond bigger. Yeah. No, I mean the business side of Games Workshop, like you got to keep in mind they got to make money, right? I
Yeah.
mean, just like I don't fault Rob Symes for selling you water bottles that say "Stay Hydrated" on it, or Doug for his Patreon. I don't fault like Games Workshop for trying to make money. Like for me, the line will always be between a company and labor exploitation and fan exploitation. It'll always be that will always be the line. The instant you, dear chat gang, think that I am exploiting you, unsub. Fucking, don't fucking be in my Patreon. Don't watch my shit. Do not do that. Like, the moment I cross that line, I'd take it as a kindness if some of my friends were like, "Yo, Meph, you're kind of becoming the thing you hate." I would really like that because sometimes, the road to hell paved in good intentions and all that, and I never want to, you know, ever betray myself in the pursuit of my passions. But yeah, like I don't fault. I'm just using Doug and Rob as an example because they're kind of viewed as like I think the light side of the dark side of the force when it comes to our content. I think there are only two like full time sort of dedicated AOS people. There's some folks out there
Yeah.
that are like broader full time minis or broader full time wargaming, but they're really like the kind of devoted Age of Sigmar content creators, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't fault them for that for that hustle, man. I don't get your hustle on, right? Make money. I hate capitalism, but I'm complicit in it. I live in a capitalist society. I partake in capitalism, so I'm going to do it in a way that sets my family up as best I can, that takes care of myself as best I can, and takes care of others as best I can. So, a harsh reality is that means money. It's a horrible reality, but it's where we're at, and I'm going to slowly undermine capitalism and change it from within by making so much money I can like rule the world, while also mastering necromancy. So I've got my plan, my long con here. Don't worry, I have a plan. But again, Games Workshop's got to make money. They're doing decent in a kind of a historic moment, right? Like culturally, pandemic wise, globally, like there's just so much going on. They're doing decent. It's okay to expect better though. Again,
Yeah.
I think it goes to that point where you just, never make it personal. Recognize the business, be self-aware, like those general things that help us have good perspective and empathy and compassion and help each other in a decent way. Snitbag dropping 1,000 RDP to remind everyone chat gang ain't nothing to mess with, and then telling me to try and exploit chat gang. Yeah, just try it. No, I think chat gang y'all exploit me sometimes. Like not like, not that I don't open myself up to it, but like your will is more powerful than mine, and I'm here for you. Dreamer dropping 1,000 RDP to remind everyone chat gang ain't nothing to mess with as well.
What's the RDP?
RDP, relentless discipline points. It's the channel. As you sit in my channel, you gain relentless discipline points, which is the of course the currency that Bone Daddies use. And you can spend RDP to like highlight your message or do some weird stuff to emojis, or just this ridiculously expensive thing that I set up is like you could spend 1,000 RDP to remind everyone that chat gang ain't nothing to mess with.
Oh my god!
And it's
oh my gosh, I have almost 1,000 RDP. Look at me.
Yeah, look at you. Heavy D6 dropping it.
That's like a super old question. I'm like, how does Twitch work? And you're actually letting me know.
Yeah.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
No. I mean,
this is what John Rocco does all day. I'm like, can you help me? And I'm like, all right, go install this. Put this on. All right, what do I do now?
Yeah, look, Hotspur and Kicker both dropping in. I think at this point we've earned the F-bomb version, reminding everyone chat gang ain't nothing to fuck with. There you go. Which you might not. As I get to explain to you, I'm explaining to the broader audience. Chat gang wasn't me. I didn't design it. I didn't come up with it. Y'all named yourself, and it was like a Wu-Tang Clan reference, like Wu-Tang chat gang.
Isto, man.
AOS coach and Rerolling Ones, Jack, dropping 1,000 RDP to remind everyone that chat gang ain't nothing to fuck with. Thank you all so very much. I love the shout-outs.
Shout out to Coach. Also, Razor Tree is the hardest working man in AOS, as I like to call him.
Yeah, and multi-talented. He's like the Hugh Laurie of Age of Sigmar, where he has like, I have one talent, and I'm not even like that talented at it. Like I talk good. I can articulate. Yeah, the gift of gab. I can articulate myself pretty decently, and as an extension, I tell good stories and I write well because I'm trained in it and it's what I do. That's it. I got a fucking guitar behind me. I'm terrible at it. But Razor Tree, Jared, he's like multi-talented. Like he's done his own logo design. He's doing like podcast style stuff. He also does some bat raps. Like he's a musician. I heard him do his guttural like death metal like ooh one day, and I'm just like, how? Like it'll blow my vocal cords right out. So like Hugh Laurie, who played House, like great actor, plays piano, can sing, can write. He has a book. Like at some point, you're offensively talented. That, sir, is you, Razor Tree. Let's see. Manzak Minis popping off 3 times, reminding us chat gang ain't nothing to mess with. Yeah, so I guess, I mean, we already kind of segued into the heavy topic for the evening, without getting really to
for sure.
much time to linger on Slaanesh. I guess just a quick summary on Slaanesh, what you're excited about. You already kind of mentioned why you're into it, and sort of maybe some schemes. What are your plans with it going forward?
Yeah, I love the. I'm looking into the mortals now. The models are amazing. Somebody mentioned the 3 units with the parachute pants, and it's like they're getting to the point where so I'm getting my Lumineth commissioned by a local painter. He's the Paint Smithy on Instagram if you want to check this stuff out. It's great, beautiful painter, a guy named Noah, and the models are just so good now. Like they'll look worse if I paint them. I got it's an interesting backhanded compliment that I got, but I was like, okay, I'll accept it for what it is. The guy, one of the guys who does BCP, the app, he looked at my model and was like, huh, you're a better painter than I thought you'd be. And I'm in my hand, I'm like, what's supposed to mean?
Speaking of
effort in it.
Yeah.
I mean, they find me. Yeah, and so it's like there's something you'll never get back as time, right? And to me, painting is something that I have to do. I prefer the game, and if as far as the Rerolling One guys, I was a guy who would go to tournaments. I was ranked. I've won 10 or 12 RTTs. I've gotten second at a GT. So I share this on Warhammer Weekly. So the year the Sylvaneth book came out, they won 1 GT, and that was against me. I lost to him. It was just, I'm the type of player I am, where I show up to the table, and that's when I start preparing. I'm like, okay, what we got? What's the puzzle to solve here? I don't prep. I know what I'm bringing. I'll see what they have. Okay, so enough. I know how they play, and I don't know who that well, but I just know that as my personality. It's something I kind of work on a little bit, but yeah. And so,
I mean, that ties in with your comedy approach too. Like you were talking about your comedy, how you approach stand-up. It catches me as no surprise that the way you approach your stand-up comedy is similar to how you approach Age of Sigmar, which is also sort of a social skilled endeavor, right? Like, yeah. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, it's a good connection. Yeah, and so I knew time is something I'm never getting back. I'm not the fastest painter, and I was like, okay, if I work overtime, say I work 2 hours overtime, I can get a unit commissioned. And like, I'll work. I started working on Saturdays a little bit, so I was like, all right, yeah, I worked a little bit now because he put 90 hours in my tech list. If you look at the tech list model, it's beautiful. 90 hours, my goodness.
Wow.
We're hearing Vince talk about how long he does. I'm like, whoa, man, are you adding hours to the week? Oh, I'll do it this time. So Dreamer 74 SU, 3 times he did it, and I think 1,000 is the curse word, right?
No, it's just the first one I say mess with. It's after they do it a few times, it just becomes F with.
Oh, okay, so this is definitely
we're in F with territory now.
When I got messaged because we got a message early on where we had a teacher thanking us.
I'm sorry, you need to do that with more oomph. I need a little bit more chat gang.
Okay, sorry. Dreamer S4 74 SU, 3 relentless discipline points for 1,000. Chat gang ain't nothing to fuck with.
There you go.
Okay, I put the emphasis on there.
Yeah, on the app.
Because early on, we got a message from a teacher saying, hey, and it wasn't nothing conscious. They thanked us for not swearing and being vulgar.
Yeah.
Because he was able to share our stuff with his chat. You know, I have 2 kids, and Shu has 4 kids. And I was on, it might have been on here. And so it was like, oh my God, I didn't know Jack swore.
I've had Doug on here once. He still didn't swear. And I'm told that he's been known to in person. And I'm like, I still don't believe it. Yeah. But I keep a mature tag on here because we get into a lot deeper than just the toy soldiers, right? So I keep a mature tag and that sort of authenticity.
We try to keep it light at Rerolling Ones. I'll tell you this, because I'm not trying to see anybody else as my enemy. Like, they can have different viewpoints. I know we mentioned Obama in a sketch early on, and we got people upset with that. And I'm like, and like Shu, I'm sorry, I don't want to say Shu. Other people, but I already said his name, would try to do a joke and and make fun of white people.
Just like
and I think that's low hanging. Just like, oh, just because you're white, you like just in it, like you see that's low hanging fruit. People do that. I don't like that. I didn't do that on stage. And I'm like, white people do this.
You know what?
Black people do this. I never like. I just happen to be black, and so it's never like. And I get messages like people like, oh my gosh, it's finally somebody who looks like me play Warhammer. Like that wasn't my intent, but I will like, oh, that's awesome that you feel that way.
Well, representation.
And not saying that's
matter.
not bad, but it was, even on stage, I was just a comedian.
Yeah.
Like race wasn't a huge thing. So I didn't want to do jokes where, oh, because he's white, he's lame. I hate jokes like that, and so I tried to curtail that because I think we're all
Don't worry, I'll make
individuals.
Plenty of them. I'll make plenty of them for you.
It's like we're just trying to. I'm just trying to put out positive content where everybody can enjoy. Doesn't matter what you think or who you like. We try to not be offensive and just have a good time.
Yeah.
The positive energy. You feel like you're there with us. We're trying to have a good time when we play. That's what I don't want to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you go a lot more the wholesome humor. Like you're not going for the SNL like political humor.
Yeah.
There's actually a video a gentleman I like to watch from time to time. He says there's like political humor isn't funny. Like he just straight up says, and I like stand up comedy as like as an art, as like I actually really like Bill Burr, who I think is one of the dying sort of shock comedians out there, like the very negative, very stuff. But like when you realize what he's doing as a comedian is he's digging himself into a hole and then comedying himself out of the hole. So in the early parts, he like offends the audience on purpose. And like, I mean, he's the only guy in the world that could probably go off for 15 minutes on the city of Philadelphia just making fun of it. Like with some of the worst, crassest, just disgusting takes in the world, and get them laughing while they're booing. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, that man might be some kind of a piece of shit or not. I don't know him personally, but he is an artist to do. Like I respect like I love comedy as an art, and just there's this take that like no political humor is funny, or no political humor is good. It can be funny, but like is set up and punchline as a joke works. Like think about like someone like Mitch Hedberg, like who's very apolitical with his comedy. This is the like I like I like an escalator because an escalator can never break down. It can only become stairs, right? Like that sort of just observational like humor. That's harder to do because you have to understand jokes. It doesn't predicate itself on bias. Like if I make fun of the cold opens for SNL, which punch both ways, they'll make fun of Hillary. They were making fun of Hillary and they were making fun of Trump pretty consistently. I know that they have a left lean, but as political constructs and jokes go, they rely. A better example might even be the Alaskan senator whose name I forget off the top of my head.
Palin.
Yeah, Palin.
Sarah Palin?
Yeah, Sarah Palin. They had they had Tina Fey do a stellar Sarah Palin, and then they actually had Sarah Palin on with the Sarah Palin impersonator to like a good. All that humor predicates itself on our bias of that, and all humor is essentially like playing with some form of bias or cognitive understanding, some sort of subversion, right? You're always subverting something. The thing is that it comes in with the subversion automatically done for you, and that's why that was the argument this comedian was making, that all political humor is bad.
I can just so you can get into a whole thing talking about wrestling, talking about MMA with me. I can do a whole thing talking about humor because we incorporated it, and this is the first time doing Rerolling Ones is that I tried to be funny with other people, and you realize not everybody has the same like sense of humor, and so and there are times where I value my friendship more than I value this sketch. So I'm going don't want to argue this. Like, hey man, let's just do this. But I thought my version was funnier, but we have different senses of humor, and sending it out to the masses, like in the comedy club, put it out there. You knew if it was funny because they would laugh right there.
Right.
Quick react. It was great. And then when somebody can ask you a question after they saw your funny thing, and you realize some people, like you mentioned, like nuance and like, oh, I was being sarcastic. Some people just don't read sarcasm.
Yeah.
Some people like they'll, oh, like, and I remember I did this bit about my dad dying, and it was one of the first bits that I wrote that wasn't true,
Oh, okay.
or like because it like yeah, it was just like in the bit my dad died, and having people come up after me and talk to me about it, and like seeing the hurt in their face, I'm like, oh man, that's not true, and I'm like, oh, like you angry. I'm like, oh man, this is a dangerous tool.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going for the laugh, and then so you try to be, we try to add funny like music behind in like the bed, just so people, this isn't serious. This is all, just taken tongue in cheek. But some people still like, did you really do that? No, man, that didn't happen, man.
Well, no, I mean,
it's an interesting world.
Like you said, you're making comedy with like multiple people, and then you're like throwing it out to like a wider audience than a club. Like when you're in a club, you can read the energy in the room. You can put an emphasis on a different part of the joke, right? Like you can, like if the punchline's here, and like the part that sets up the punchline is maybe like the character mood you're in, like like how your energy is. You can adjust on the fly. When you pre-record that video and you throw that out to the world, that's it, right? Like you live or die by what you recorded. And it's, I mean,
it's trying to edit YouTube, trying to edit a joke where like in a comedy club, pauses are important. Like having a pause in like, it's one of the best feelings when every word you're saying, they're on it.
Yeah.
And there's about to be an eruption, because I know as the performer, this place is going to be going crazy in 3 seconds.
Yeah.
But right now we're sitting in silence and it's ramping up. Boom. For the like YouTube jokes and for sketches, it was different for me. I'm like, hey man, you're cutting these clips too close together.
Yeah.
There's no, this doesn't seem natural because people don't talk on top of each other.
Right.
You talk and then you reply, but you're like,
accidentally
this is how
interrupt
you do it
someone.
Yeah. So it doesn't feel like a natural, but I'm like, it's not what our whole videos are about. It's just, it came organically, and it's what we're known for. And like it's kind of like and like you're like, I can't, trying to think of a sketch. Like, oh man, golly, just trying to come up with a sketch. What's funny? What have we done? It's like almost like you're 3 years in. Like, oh, did we do that one already? I don't know. Until you get a notebook trying to think about sketches, and I want to go back to using the green screen. I want to go back to, especially because I'm getting back in shape. I got a little fat there.
Yeah, I've seen you've been working out like over the photos. Yeah.
It's like, oh man, I've been drinking. Like interesting. If you go back to the beginning of the Rerolling Ones, this is the first time I've actually shared this. I had a TIA, which is a micro stroke, and I did not know. And you can tell, I can tell definitely, because I'm having trouble finding words. I was having a lot of word finding problems, and I was like, oh, then it's corn. Everything's blood. It's hard to come up, but I was in a fog, and I end up like going through a lot of health stuff. I went to the doctor a bunch, and they did an MRI. They saw it there. I ended up having a surgery on my heart. They like go through your groin, patch your heart up, and I'm like, and so I started gaining weight because I'm just like, oh, I thought I was gonna die.
Yeah.
Because but now I'm back to myself. I'm back at the gym. I'm cognitively there. It's one of the reasons I had to stop doing stand up, because you have to be quick. You have to be blah 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 blah. But if you can't figure out what this is like, mug, and it's just you having that little thing. But now, and so that's me going back in the gym. I'm getting back to where I was.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you for sharing that. I know that can be hard. I'm happy you're here, man. I know you hear this a lot probably from people, but you and the Rerolling Ones crew have improved my life. I think I resonate a lot more with you because we got the wrestling thing in common, the NFL, we make fun of each other, and the comedy. I think that so I talk to you a little bit more. Shu and Brent both have some RPG and some vampire stuff, so I know I jive with them too. But I don't know what it is. Go ahead.
Oh no, say they're like, it's interesting. They're musicians. They were both in bands and stuff. And like seeing they can connect on that. I'm like, I have no, like, I couldn't play a thing. I'm like, if I go to karaoke, I'm probably one of the better singers there, but I can't, like, if there's no words and melody for me to sing with, I'm like, I only can sing songs I've heard before. I can't do anything original.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm just wanted to say, like, I'm happy you're still here, man. You've influenced just even how I approach content. Like, I try to be a more positive person. Like you said, you got to surround yourself with positive people, and you're one of those conversations that just sticks with me that we've had, where I'm like, I find myself going into that dark place, and I go, I always remember you saying that first time you called something trash and you got to feel the reaction yourself, back at you. I'll never forget that. I'm like, I never want to do that to somebody. I have. I know I have. Like I called Ogre Maw Tribes a tragedy of a book. I've had some strong takes, but overall, when I've engaged myself, cognitively and being conscious, I try not to. Nobody's perfect, but again, you know, thank you for sharing that, man. That's and I'm glad you're feeling a little bit more like yourself and you're getting to the gym and stuff.
Having a platform where you're comfortable enough to and vulnerable enough, because you are the Joe Rogan of AOS. So we're able to. You just made me feel comfortable. Like I want to share this stuff because this is a topic. We're supposed to talk about Slaanesh more, but one of the topics I was like, I would think about was. Yeah. The game is like the least important part. It's there. It's what we're here. But the people is what I enjoy the most.
Yeah.
And when you like, even though we have different viewpoints, just like in society, we think different things. I still love Rob, the Honest Wargamer. Dan, Dispossessed Dan, he lives in Vancouver, which is like a few hours north. I've hung out with him multiple times. Lovely guy. And just like we can have disagreements about this specific thing, but still be cool in other things that we do have commonalities. We still love this game. We still consume content on Twitter and YouTube and Twitch. Because there are people who play OS who've never heard of any of us.
Right.
Like,
yeah,
the commentary, and you realize, like, we're a niche of a niche of a niche, and then but we can still cultivate this community and still, like, become friends with people like Razor Tree and not Honest Wargamer, Razor Tree, John Rocco, and Craig at Takeover Mars.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying games off.
It's up to the individual. Usually, I try to, when I'm doing the broadcast, go with their handles because that's how they choose to present themselves, for conversation. So I don't want to like out people. Everyone's got their own privacy levels, right? Yeah. So like, but like some people have like their Twitter handle will be their like first name, and then like their Twitch handle or vice versa. So it gets a little complicated, but usually, basically, I address them how they've addressed themselves to me. So that's I think that's just in general that's just Twitch etiquette. That's how that's how I learned it. But yeah, just like resetting one thing real quick. The AOS part of RantCast is the Mirage. Like it's like we were gonna talk Slaanesh tonight. Yeah, no, we weren't. we lied to you like Games Workshop did with a battletome or something. Like
those blood fiends.
yeah, those Oh, too soon.
Let them get a new War Scroll when the Beast of Chaos book comes out. Then you go buy them.
There you go. It's a misprint. They're gonna FAQ it, man. I have hope. I don't want to beat that dead horse. I know we beat it a little hard on Warhammer Weekly last night. We kind of like I kept using it as a low hanging fruit whenever I don't want to think too hard about the subject because it's 5 hours of talking. I don't know.
You just have to do.
Yeah, you gotta have like sort of safety conversational safety blankets when you're going through on stuff like that. I mean, it's live broadcast is hard. Everybody, okay, this isn't hard. I love doing this. No, there's parts of it are hard. Like anything. There are names I just noticed yesterday, so thank you for calling out again. But no, I think just to kind of like put a ribbon on what you were saying there. I think it starts with respect, and when you respect other people in the community, you can disagree about stuff and still like each other. Rob and I, we've disagreed on things pretty openly on Twitter. We've had I wouldn't call it like a beef or anything like that, because it's usually like Rob will say something, I'll respond to him, and then it's like other people responding to me, and then like so it looks like it looks more negative than it. Rob just says, I doubt Rob really has time to watch anybody else's content or really engage with it in any deeper way than just, you know, that sort of like cordial level, right? But like, yeah, I've like, you know, when he was, you know, he says some stuff I disagree with, and I do that, but I respect him enough to where like I'm just disagreeing with that take, not him the human as at the core of his being. You know, if you meet him, that like jovial, like happy Brit guy, like he is that. And I say Brit guy as an American because now all the Americans watching go, oh yeah, we know what you're talking about. But obviously to him, like there's no general, you know, stock standard copy pasted British individual in Britain. But yeah, so I guess every time we try to talk about Slaanesh, we just keep talking about everything else anyway. So the pretense is gone, the mirage is over. If you made it this far into RantCast, hoping for Slaanesh hot takes, my bad.
Let's edit that part out of the topic.
Yeah, we'll just edit it. Yeah, I won't even title it Slaanesh. Like it won't even be in the title anymore. No, we one of the heavier topics, or I think it's something we're all becoming quickly aware of, is this concept of gatekeeping. And now I want to, before I kind of let you talk about this, because you actually kind of pitched this to me, and I had a dream. I was recording a video about gatekeeping, and like it's actually like it was in between two stress dreams. Like I literally had a dream right before I dreamed I was recording a video about gatekeeping. I literally had a dream where I was in my room, waking up from bed. I tend to sleep in like just boxers, you know, and so I'm waking up in just my boxers, and all my camera equipment was in my room, and Vince and Tom were sitting in my room recording Warhammer Weekly. And I'm like, I wake up from under the covers. I'm like, and I'm just like, I guess we're doing Warhammer Weekly now. And then like I had to get dressed under the covers. Like it was a wild dream. Like so I had this dream like a couple nights ago or whatever. Kind of wedged in between that and then like another just changing gears other stress dream was I was recording a gatekeeping video. And it was one of those dreams because I had already actually recorded a video about gatekeeping on like what I call the Meph and Truck series, where I'm just at work in the truck recording. I never posted it. And so the dream was actually reflecting on that and then trying to do it and then like getting into like a Twitter fight and then not doing it, and it was just a weird dream. But when you talked about it, I'm like, clearly it's that like clearly my conscience or my mind is like, Andrew, you got to do that video, right? Like clearly like I felt some kind of stress about not releasing that to the world. It's kind of like when you have a dream about your teeth falling out. They say it's your it's because you haven't said something, you know, like there's something that's been eating away at you that you've needed to say. So that yeah, that's what that dream. When you have that dream, it means you're having communication problems. Usually, that's the pseudoscience, right? So you mentioned it for the topic. I'm like, yeah, let's talk about this. Before I dive into it, and I'm really going to give you the sort of your take, I want to mention something because gatekeeping it's one of those, it almost is a malleable seeming topic. When I say gatekeeping, everybody in chat gang probably has a different understanding of what it means. And so I want to at first kind of address the academic side of it. So gatekeeping actually goes back to about 1922. It wasn't formalized, however, as a thing until 1943 by someone named Kurt Lewin. I personally encountered he's a social psychologist, so it's a social psychologist term, right? I personally encountered gatekeeping when I was about 18 years old in a journalism class at college, a 200 level journalism class. Did you have a question? I saw the hand kind of go. No.
No.
Okay. In this journalism class, they were talking about how we were supposed to be unbiased in journalism. And I said that I don't believe you can be unbiased in journalism because by choosing a topic, you're automatically showing bias. And my teacher kind of, you know, I'm a smug 18-year-old who knows everything, right? My professor kind of used this as a segue or a teaching opportunity to talk about gatekeeping. In journalism, gatekeeping, as Kurt Lewin would put it, is essentially that first thing I talked about, which is from a reporter choosing what to report on. From there, the editors choose which stories to publish. And then it can go even a step further with like an advertiser carrying your thing, or like some publish, some big conglomerate like choosing to like show that story. So gatekeeping, this actually happens in literature too. If I try to publish a book, old fuddy-duddies can be like, nah, we're not going to publish your book. So gatekeeping actually had for a long time, had this connotation of what stories and what information was allowed to be out. The information side of things was being gatekept. Now, I think if you look up Urban Dictionary, it says pretty simply that gatekeeping is like who can be a fan of what and what counts as a fandom. And I think that's the definition people know a little bit more, understand a little bit more, right? And then I think there's another layer to that, like who's being gatekept, not just about like, hey, you're not a true fan. It goes to women can't be fans of this thing, or like there's a more insidious layer to that too. But I wanted to point out the sort of academic side of things that say you probably, if you have a conflicting understanding of what gatekeeping means right now, dear chat gang, dear listener, dear viewer, it's because it is a social, psychological, evolving term. And depending on where you encountered it and what your familiarity is, you're going to have a different understanding of it. So I want to get that out of the way, because I think when we say gatekeeping as a community in Age of Sigmar, we mean a little bit more of that Urban Dictionary version.
Yes, I think you're completely right, because that's what I thought of it as, like you can't be a fan of this. You're too new. You're enjoying this wrong. This is the way you have to enjoy it. And if you like this way, that's wrong. No, you have to like it just like I do, and therefore, and I'm holding the keys. And like I remember doing stand up, even like being cognizant of it. We're like, you see a new open micers, because luckily there was comics around me who were really friendly. But there's always comics who see new people and like, you're just taking up a slot. You're not any good. But of course you're not going to be good, because you're just getting on stage for the first time, and you need that time to grow and all that stuff. And where it's like when you want to be more inclusive and more, and I have to fight this, because when I look at narrative in my head initially, I'm like, what is this fan fiction? But I'm like, but that's the way they enjoy the game.
Right.
And so do I want to play AOS with my brother who, like, he tells me the name of his character and his backstory and why he, before the new Seraphon book, well, no, this guy is actually one of these. And in my head, I'm like, I don't care. But I'm like, okay, I love my brother, so I'm going to listen to his story about his character. And then I'm going to shoot him off the table with my long strike. But, and so, like, where you still want to be, I still, like, yeah. And so where I'm like, hey, that's not how you play the game. That would be gatekeeping to me, where like you have to play like you have to enjoy like I do, or you weren't here. And when the first GHB came out when I was here, so you don't know what you can play about, how you can play about Lumen when this, that, and the other. But
yeah, I mean, gatekeeping itself, whilst has a negative connotation, is sort of a neutral thing. Gatekeeping happens at a bunch of different levels, I think that it's important to be sort of explicit in the type of gatekeeping that, like, really let people play things that they enjoy and let them enjoy it, right? Like, I think that's the purest hot take I've got. Razor Tree here saying gatekeeping to me, anecdotal, is stopping someone from playing because you don't like their style, army choice. And that's a pretty applied definition to Age of Sigmar. And then real quick, Takeover Mars dropped 1,000 RDP to remind everyone chat gang ain't nothing to mess with. Yeah, I think, I mean, there's this take or this understanding or this belief that the tenure of somebody's fandom, that is how long they've been a fan of something, equates to worthiness of fandom. I hate that. I despise that. Like with your comedy thing, we all start somewhere. People talk about like, in before bandwagon Lumineth players. Like, why? Why do you hate that? Like, everyone jumped on a bandwagon at some point. If they stayed on, they just became fans. Like, when Wolverine movies were coming out, like, I'm an OG Wolverine fan. I bet people don't even know his real name is James Howlett. Like, I remember that crap happening. Like, why? You don't need to know all the minutia of something to enjoy it. That's what fandom is you you enjoy the thing. And that ties back in with the FAQ. The part that bothered me the most about the FAQ reactions wasn't people's positive or negative takes about the FAQ. It was people saying you can't feel some kind of way. That bothered me. Gatekeeping for the same reason bothers me. This is one of the hills I will die on. This is one of the things I will fight at every step throughout my content is, gatekeeping bad. How just I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, all those bandwagon 21-year-olds starting to drink, hopping on the bandwagon. Yeah, exactly, man, Zach. Yeah, we all start somewhere. I mean, and gatekeeping people for their interests is rather dubious. Gatekeeping people for who they are is especially dubious. Like, just let people play the thing. I like the thing. You like the thing, right? Now I'm talking to a general made-up person, right? You like the thing, and like you have good taste. So by association, if someone likes the thing that you like, they must also share your great taste. They're like you. And did I hear you mention Comic-Con?
What's that?
Did I hear you mention Comic-Con, or is it just? I'm sorry.
Oh no. I like Comic-Con though. I miss it. It's one of the nice things about getting back in shape. I can cosplay again.
Oh, you can cosplay at any time, my friend. It's just when you're comfortable with it, and it sounds like you're feeling more comfortable to cosplay again. Yes. That's a common gatekeeping that I see happen is like people saying that you can't cosplay certain characters because you don't have the body type. Sure they can.
Yeah, that is
sure they can.
That is right.
If they're comfortable with it, it comes down to that person. What are they comfortable with? I've always been comfortable, cross-playing because clothing equaling gender has never been something that computed for me as a kid growing up. Like I'm just like, look at this ancient, like medieval fighter in a literal skirt. Like, I've never equated, masculinity or femininity to clothing. Other people might, right? Whatever. Think what you think, believe what you believe. I never did. So I was like, I would, cross-play, it's called when you play like a different gendered character than yourself, right? I would cross-play a character and like wouldn't care, but you'd get that pushback of like, guys should be playing girl characters. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Who cares? Like the fandom. Go on.
Oh yeah. Just that goes back to gatekeeping. And like the way you pointed that out, like yeah, you're right. I couldn't have because of COVID, but I didn't need to be. But it was more comfortable for me to do that. My aesthetic. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a person's own personal comfort level is one of the most important things that we can in any community is like you got to feel comfortable there and with yourself and stuff like that but like yeah, cosplay whatever you want. You're never gonna see me being that person like, oh, you can't be Sailor Moon because you're just a little too heavy or get out of here. People cosplay because it makes them feel good. They like inhabiting that character concept or that for like one precious weekend at Comic-Con or Gen Con where Gen Con, all the people with their elf ears and like yeah, when I was younger I used to snicker dweebs. Like I remember being a kid just like making fun of like look at this nerd who's somehow just a touch more dirtier than me. No, they're probably about as dirty as me. They're just more comfortable displaying it than I was. And I was being vicious about it by mocking them. I'm not proud of it.
Yeah.
But
it's great self-reflection. And then it's also where you can get that confidence. Like, yeah, not everybody like you're worrying about yourself. Like, okay, somebody might not enjoy this, but do I like it? Do I know them? Like letting somebody else's like negativity influence you is like it's freeing when you can get past that. Which it's difficult to do. You have to. It's like work on it.
You got to work on it. No, I mean you're right. It's hard. As I've gotten older, I've just cared less and less about what others think of me specifically. It's my own thoughts of myself are the hardest thing to reconcile. To an extent, I care about what people think of me in just a general, like I live in a society and, I don't want people to think I'm a monster. But I don't care if you think I like Warhammer too much, that I'm planning on going to Nova dressed like a skeleton necromancer. I don't.
Oh, what?
Yeah, whatever. I don't think it's gonna. It probably Nova 2022. It's my plan to cosplay. Chuck Moore
Oh.
cannot be the only one with a cosplay Warhammer trophy. I must win. so, so I want to get like a skeleton gloves and like robes and.
You all cosplay as something at least one of the days. I might not do all of the days of
It could
Nova,
get rough.
but I will try.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I mean, like I said, like that level of getting comfortable with yourself again, and that's its own challenge. But from the you can help people be more comfortable with themselves by not judging them.
Yeah.
And I think that's what at the core of it. Man, Zach, I know this convo has gotten thick. I don't know if you got the deliberate extra eyes in there, given the subject matter, but I am curious about what you guys have been working on. Project Chat or Project Theory Crafting is my favorite.
I'll go. So I am currently getting a Lumineth army commissioned, so I'm not working on that. But what I'm actually working on right now is 10 Shadow Warriors. There we go. Because I play Cities of Sigmar, which I like to, it's like, people say it's like a sandbox army because you can go, but it's also quicksand because you can get, if you're a completionist, is not the army for you. Because I have way too much stuff. And so I was starting to build the new Cities of Sigmar that can take Daughters of Cain stuff that came out in the Marathi book. Because I was like, oh, cool. And so now I have a Daughters of Cain army just because it is another. I also have a KO army just because the Tempest died. And I'm like, okay, this is a great deal. So I'm working on these Shadow Warriors, and then I will be painting up. This is a good question for the chat and you. So I have 20 Sisters of Slaughter, and I have
Not enough.
20 Sisters of Slaughter or Witch Elves on sprue. Now, what should I build? Should I build more Sisters of Slaughter and go Kraith, or should I have a mix and get some daughters, some Witch Elves in there?
I gotta meme. You gotta have more Sisters of Slaughter.
Okay.
I mean that's Chat gang, what do you believe? More Kicker says SOS Sisters of Slaughter. I love the pile-in.
Yes.
I like the pile-in too. I think we're going into an interesting space with that pile-in.
Yeah, played it all. It was not all, but mostly Yeti army. I think I ended up with almost 30 Yetis or something like that, and just that pile-in mechanic is amazing.
It's a lot of fun.
Because you can always you get to retreat when it's your turn, just so you choose all your
pile back fighters. In. Yeah.
I actually don't have snakes. I have only snake I have is Marathi and this guy, the Medusa. Melusa, yeah. And yeah, I'm learning the names, and yeah, there I was kind of dunking on this model. He looks better in person, I think.
Yeah.
I might.
Yeah, no, actually,
he's not.
Like the standing, like the T-pose thing, even when you were holding it up there, it was pretty quick. You could see the depth, like he's actually kind of, the arms are back, like there's actually a little bit more motion to the model than you realize when you see the picture, because it's stepping forward, like it still looks statuesque, and should, because that's the narrative of the piece, but it's got a little bit more motion to it than I think people realize, and a little bit more depth.
Yeah.
Let's see. I saw a comment up here. What have I been working on? Do people care?
I'm curious.
It's been a lot of Blood Bowl. I got together the start. I've got a couple sprues left to go. I moved all my rearranged my office, so it used to be sitting on this table right here. But it's all. I got together a bunch of Blood Bowl building stuff. Reconfiguring my office. Which is, I consider it part of, it's not necessarily part of hobby, but it's part of my projects, because I plan to start doing a little bit more like video essay type stuff, like stuff exclusive for YouTube, where I just do like a little 20-minute video or a 30-minute video, something in that area. I want to do some short content. Now, the algorithm hates that I do both long form and short short-term content. And it hates when you do more than one subject on your YouTube. So like I have video games, tabletop gaming, and Warhammer. It hates all of that. So this isn't about like helping my channel per se via the algorithm, but quite frankly, I'm more than just Warhammer. Everyone who watches RantCast knows this. But like I want to do more a wider breadth of content that brings in a little bit more of the stuff like we were talking about tonight with gatekeeping and general nerdery. I want to do some more in-depth journalism. You know, I want to get a little bit back to my like journalism roots and my writer roots. So I've been working on that. And the major project, I guess I can talk about this, is I started a new story. So I started writing a new.
Ooh, awesome.
A new. It should be about a novella length. It'll be about 10,000 words, I think, when it's done. 10,000, 11,000. So a good chunky story, but you know, in paperback it'd be about the thickness of The Great Gatsby or Catcher in the Rye. So more of a novella than a full-on novel about a couple. The one of them gets killed in the like is alluded to having just been killed when the story starts, and the other one sort of survives the mugging type thing. So they kill themselves to go drag race the devil in hell for the soul of their beloved back. It's Dante's Inferno meets Redline. Like it's just a wacky, over the top story. I know I started to describe it. I'm like, this sounds really dour. It's actually like really tongue in cheek and like really over the top and weird. Like at one point, I'm describing like because of course Hitler would be in hell. I'm describing Hitler in his like Hitlermobile, where it's like a tiki torch I call it a tiki torch locomotive. So if you can imagine this like steam engine with all these tiki torches on it and stuff like that, really making fun of some kind of movement. So I described that, and like he goes to shift it into gear and it explodes because it turns out hate makes a horrible fuel, I think is the line. Like, and there's the Pope has actually pretty very Slaanesh-y sort of gruesome description, because like it's the blind Pope in his like retrofitted Pope mobile, and it's like more of a chariot with all the like the deacons like that he's looking the other way. Really scathing stuff. The devil is driving a hot rod, like a classical hot rod, the engine exposed, with a chain license plate with the license plate S1NN3R. Sinner. He's got like the fuzzy dice in the window. So it's just a really weird. So like the real Pope, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's really like it's super tongue in cheek. The metaphors are obvious, like and then it's just this story about like racing, drag racing the devil in hell. Like it's just this really weird. It's a story I've been wanting to write for a long time, and I wasn't going to write it because I didn't want to start a new writing project. But I went to work on an old writing project, and I went to write a story to like get one published while I've been laid off, and none of it was coming together. And then and then I just wrote the first sentence, and then like suddenly I had a whole page, and then I had a whole chapter, and then I'm like, okay, well let's go back and outline this real quick because this is I knew the story I wanted to tell. I have the ending written. It's one sentence. I know what it is. I won't spoil it. I hope to finish this thing. I know the sentence, like, and how it ends. It's a happy ending, actually. It's a weird ending. It's weird, but it's happy. And I have like chapter XXX, I call it, where like I have the sort of like you have what you call it like quiet moments, and the climax this. So you have to have like this, So normally your story goes, and there's like a moment where like the characters just like get to have a breath, right? So I'm like, it would be really awesome if when like the race, like he pulls over for the night to like do a pit stop style thing, this happens, and then like his love interest shows up with an electric guitar like an axe and like beats up a bunch of like the demons that show up, and then so I wrote that like weird chapter just out of nowhere because I know it's gonna roughly fall on my plot line. Sorry, super boring stuff.
No.
I
Do you have
go ahead.
Do you have any places where you can read your stories online? Do you have them on like
I could, yeah. Lulu.com is a self-publishing site. I'm featured in a couple anthologies on there. So there's a End of the World Writing Party, edited and published by T.C. DeWitt. I have 2 stories available. One's called Family Man, about a guy who's a blue-collar working slob, goes home, turns out he's like ex-government program mutant type, And, so that's a short story. That's I think about 1,500 words. When you write for anthologies, you tend to have like a word limit that they're looking to fill because they have limited amount that they're trying, pardon me, that they're trying to release. And so like I'm like, okay, I've got a 1,500 word story for this anthology that loosely fits the theme of darkness was the theme on that one. And so the premise was that like the first sentence in that story is I'm the bad guy in my own story, or I'm the villain in my own story. And so the whole premise is like this isn't about a superhero. This is about the bad guy who did bad stuff but then retired being pulled out of retirement by events. And like so so that one's cool. Yeah, the End of the World Writing Party by T.C. DeWitt. It's an anthology, so I'm featured in that one. I can get the links for people who care. And then the other one is called Desert City Blues. It's about a mechanic who talks to robots in a post-apocalypse setting who tries to rescue her dad from prison. And so she doesn't know her dad's still alive. She finds out he's still alive. She goes to rescue him in prison, and she's psychic and talks to robots. It's just a really... I tell weird stories. Like,
have you submitted to Black Library or done anything? I know Brent's a writer from Rerolling Ones. He's submitted to Black Library a couple times.
I did submit to your boy Doug, and his exact words were Mephisto submitted a story. I don't quite know what to make of it. Because it was a story about Catacross assaulting like this bone tower. Like I called it a bone scraper. So if you can imagine like a tower, like a skyscraper except made of bones to collect the tithe. And like he shows up with like with accountants for like I'm sorry you've built this like tower too tall and like we're gonna take 30% of it. So like they show up to they show up to tax corn basically, and a huge war fights out, or a huge fight breaks out, and a greater demon shows up to fight Catacross, and Catacross defeats him with his codpiece. I write weird stuff. Yeah, I can get that one out to the world. Yeah.
Okay, I want to read that. Yeah. So John Rocco ended up winning the latest Doug contest.
Yeah, I didn't submit for that one.
He asked me to proofread it, and so I want to take at least partial credit because I gave him some notes.
Yeah. No, and then I've got a bunch of what we call trunk stories. So writers, this is weird. I normally don't talk about my writing in this in depth. Writers have what is called a writer's trunk. This is essentially the pile of rejected stories you have, and I have an immense one. So I have a bunch of stories that like never saw publishing. I won a writing contest for like a 5-sentence story. Short stories, like the most recent thing I did. I'd have to like figure out where that link is to that. I think I did like a 5-sentence horror story. So I won like a mini writing contest there. It was it was about it was sort of a haunted house story. And the basic premise is you're getting each sentence is sort of a time jump. And you don't really it's like 5 sentences. It's like it's enough to fit in a tweet is what the contest was for essentially. So enough to fit in a tweet. That's your limit. You have a character limit 255 words. And I think I came in at like 250. And so it's just like talks about like how these walls are haunted, like now I haunt a new thing. And it's just this idea that there's like this murderer wrongfully accused sort who ends up in prison. And it's just this 1, 2, 3, and it's a time skip to like this little kid gets murdered. You know the context. It's a little kid because like it's talking about crayons on walls, and then like there's some regrets, and then in prison. And so it's just this weird like esoteric. You read it a couple times, and the language is supposed to be evocative of the horror that is going on. The way I describe the crayons as zigzagging. I want you to imagine that gesture of stabbing where, if you're holding a crayon with your fist, you'd imagine that, right? That zigzag that goes along. So that was that.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, I wrote a story called The Patient a long time ago. That was one of my first things. I can't track that one down. I reached out to the person who published that one. This is right out of college. They don't have a copy of it anymore. So if you find a copy of a story somewhere by I used to write under Andrew Heggie. I write under JV Heggie now. So my middle initials, I have two, and my last name, just for 1 degree of separation between me and the stuff I write. Because my stuff gets weird and dark. I wrote a story called The Patient. That was one of the first things. It was about this patient who was diagnosed, or this doctor who was diagnosing a patient, and as they were diagnosing the patient, it became aware to the reader that the patient didn't exist. The doctor was going crazy. So like they were going crazy to like cope with the loss of their I think it was their wife, like died in in like a fire. And then it becomes obvious that they set the fire. It's unclear whether it's incidental or accidental or intentional. If the patient set the fire, it's meant to be. I want you to read into it your way. They totally did it on purpose, but in my notes I wrote it as though they did it on purpose, but I left it ambiguous. So that's going on. That I can't find that story though. I don't remember it. I remember it fondly because it was that first thing I felt like I succeeded at, but I don't have it anymore. I need to find it. And then just a boatload of trunk stories. I've got a novel I'm working on beside the new one I just started, and I've got a project I've been working on to write a TV show with a friend. So
is it like hard to have, or is it kind of, does it take less stress off your, like, I guess, mind or whatever if you have multiple things? Because I know when I'm painting something, it's nice to also have, I'm painting something else.
yeah,
Because I can get burned out on this project. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna hop over to these guys. But
yeah.
then you have a lot of fun stuff floating around.
It's good and bad, right? Because when you paint a mini and you finish a mini, you have a finished mini, right? Like that, there's a good feeling there. But if you're working on like multiple big projects, like you're like, I'm good because I have my army that I play, and now I just like I'm gonna paint this model. But when I'm doing all the detail work and I get fatigued, I'd like to do some batch painting, something that goes a little quicker. I think writing's a lot like that for me. Some writers tell you like, no, work on one thing at one time. For me, I always want to tell more than one story. Like there's always a bunch of stories. A lot of writers and dirty creatives will tell you the hardest part of it is having another idea after the first one. Usually I have plenty of ideas. And I can't contain them. I need to get them out. It's I mean, the way I talk and how I'm just constantly a little bit all over the place, my mind is like that on the inside too for writing. It's when you read me in the written language, though, you get a very focused version of Mephisto. You get a very you get the focused, streamlined, straightforward version that you never get in a conversation because it's the craft that I'm practicing. It's the skill. I'm taking out all those extra thoughts. Like, yeah, I wrote chapter XX because I don't know technically where it's going to follow my plot line, but I have my plot line. I go A, B, C, D until it's over, and then I put that in the right place. I go back through, I edit it all comes together, and I go, boom, I've got this story that's concise. The ideas are weird, but like when you read it, you go, hey, this goes from point A to the end, and it's a story. I can't do that in conversation as well because it's a jumble of thoughts. When I'm writing, I feel like I'm me because I finally get to cut through the noise that is being me. I get to finally like breathe. I don't write. People tell me, a lot of people are, I write stories and I get down on myself because like I'll get a rejection letter, right? I'm just mad. I'm sad. I'm upset. I don't feel good enough. My impostor syndrome kicks in. Why have I wasted 36 years of my life trying to be a storyteller and failing miserably when this other person out here is getting published for just their first story? Disgust, anger, just turns initial, that reaction of like judging others turns internal, and then I take it out on myself. And I don't really know how to cope with that so far. But people ask, like, well, but you write because it makes you feel good. I'm like, it's not that simple. Finishing a story feels good. It feels good to finish a story. Writing is a battle. I don't write because I feel good the whole time I'm doing it. I write because I have to. Because it's in me, and it can't stay in me, because if it stays in me, I go crazy. I need to put it on the page, get rid of that story, and then I feel a little bit better when it's finished. But like then I feel bad when it gets rejected, and then I feel terrible when like someone reads it and says this is crap, and I go, I just spent like 3 months on that. Cool.
I was listening to like some audiobook about the people who are hyper successful. They fall in love where they get their dopamine drips from the struggle of doing the object. Like writing gives them the high, not finishing.
Hmm.
Like when you enjoy the grind, when that's what you look forward to. Oh, I can't wait. Like because I would equate this to like my job. I'm really I'm my UPS driver job. I'm really good at my job. It's not something but it's hard work. But hard work eventually just become work. It just becomes what you do. You don't recognize it as hard because it's your body's adapted to it, your mind's adapted to it. This is what we do. And so it's like I'm in this process now of learning how to edit. This is a new thing to me. It's like I need to always multitask, and this is something I have to focus on and do. Like I can't even play like first person shooters anymore because I need to be doing something else. I need to be painting while I take a turn in a video game, then do this for a little bit. Then I'm listening to an audiobook in the background. My mind is that way now. But just when you, and I'm trying to enjoy just, maybe I can listen to something, but I can't listen to anything else while I'm editing because I have to listen to the clip,
Yep.
cut here, do this. And like, so being able to focus, whereas, like I'm like usually all over the place, like, okay, I need to do this, and then like, okay, and now this takes 10 hours of doing it half-assedly. But if I would have focused on it, I probably could do it in 3. But it's just one of the things trying to, and they sell drugs for it. But I'm just trying to, okay, I can force. I've lost 115 pounds. Mind over matter. I can do this.
Yeah.
But it's so, yeah.
There's
just enjoying that grind and that state.
Do you enjoy the grind? Did you have to like teach yourself to enjoy that grind? Did you yeah?
I'm trying to in learning how to enjoy the grind. After I heard somebody talking about that, I was like, okay, yeah, because you like it's setting goals are important, but you can always have when you hit your goal. Sometimes there's that crash. We're like, well, now what? But if you get to the point where like, ooh, now I get to grind again, because and it's when you put out content like I always like, all right, try and treat it like a cornerback. You're a football player, fan, you'll understand that. Where they have to treat every play as an individual thing. Like, okay, you see people like, oh, dude, you just got burned that last play before. They have to get that out of their mind.
Yeah, short memory.
Yeah, knock down or intercept the ball and celebrate, or just like, yes, I won. I got this individual thing because they have to compartmentalize each individual play. We're like, all right, I did a bat rep. That's out in the ether. On to the next one.
Yeah.
Like, Brent Chu would be like, oh, it's doing good. The numbers are doing good. I'm like, I can't worry about that. I'm on to the next. Okay, who am I going to roll court with? What armies haven't we used for a while? All right, we need to try to curate it so that it's even match. Because the worst thing is, like, I just recorded 3 bat reps. 2 of them were one of those games that it's over. Like, we played Knife to the Heart, and it was over as soon as it could be. I should have took a little stronger list, but it's also the game of dice, or the other one, like, okay, you try to explain to somebody, all right, so I was playing Iron Jaws, and I'm like, hey, with Mighty Destroyers, I can do a normal move, and then I can do a move, and then I can charge you.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, and he's like, all right, you first. I'm like, okay, now I killed your, Ghoul King on Terrorgeist and your Arch Regent because you didn't understand that I can move, 24 inches and then charge it. And so I'm going to get to the stuff back there and smashing and bashing and kill both the things. And it's like, okay, well, it's like you wasted some time because like I could maybe put that out there just to show that, hey, this is possible. Or do you try to be like, make it a little WWE-ish? And so, hey, let's do, are we doing this for entertainment? Or, because I know this is a thing that I just, like Mini War Game got eliminated the double turn for AOS. And when I hear that, I'm like, but now you're not playing AOS.
Yeah.
You're playing like a homebrew thing. Because AOS is this game. Now you're doing like open play or whatever. You're making, but also it's like it came for newer people, not to gatekeep or saying anything, but newer people, that is usually one of the biggest complaints is double turns, and then, but just like that Thunder Tusk, just like, those things, once you learn how to, you can prepare to not get devastated if you get double turned by moving units other places. So if you understand that that's part of the game, and do accordingly, like protect yourself and things like that, it becomes less of a divisive issue.
I mean, it's just real quick on that. I mean, it's a super powerful effect, but like once you learn how to harness or buffer against it, it can be a real fun part of the game. Just catch up here on chat. I see Tulilia showing up. She actually did a show with me a little while ago. Both her and Razor Tree have both done shows here on RantCast. So, hello, how's it going?
She's a great artist.
Yeah. And she crushes it every time she makes a vampire. Like, they're all fantastic.
Oh, you see her Neferata? She had some tiggle bitties, man.
I had the idea of an opposite of an 07 movie where it's essentially the villain's point of view. I think that stuff's fun. I like playing with perspective in stories. That's one of my favorite things to do. Mephisto and JV Heggie are two different people. One of the things when I started doing, right before I started doing RantCast, AOS coach kind of gave me some advice about, like, this burning platform, like, or a frog on a lily pad, like, sort of allegory, and how, like, the frog's not going to jump off the lily pad while it's comfortable, so you got to make the frog jump by, like, maybe setting one of the lily pads behind it on fire, and then it'll, so whole thing like that. And one of the things he said about, like, because I was really upset about Twitch, like where Twitch was going. I had hit affiliate on Twitch, and I was one of the early affiliate program people, like one of the really, really early ones to get affiliate. I don't lack for having the amount of subs required to become a partner, but I could never pull down the general numbers. You need 75 constant viewers to become a partner, and I was at 50, and I was right at the line, and I was so close, right? Like, I was one solid marathon. I was doing a bunch of video game, like, RPG streams, like tons of Final Fantasy, tons of stuff like that. I was getting so close, and then I got hit with, like, just a bunch of problems in reality. All my momentum stopped. I went back to Twitch streaming, and I had 2 viewers come back. And I'm like, I got to start all over again with the grind. And I remember feeling defeated, and coach telling me, like, well, like, I need to sort of change gears, and, what do I really want to do? What type of content do I really want to make? You can be mindful of the algorithm in all the ways, but, like, what do you really want to do? The piece of the puzzle I still haven't solved from that original conversation is Mephisto the writer with Mephisto the podcaster. I don't know how to bring these two together. You talk about Age of Sigmar is the niche of the niche of the niche. It's not even the most popular game made by Warhammer, or made by Games Workshop, right? We're not even doing the popular one. If you did the 40K thing, it'd be a lot more stable, right? Like, that we're already in passion land. We're already in nichedom. People aren't going to listen to a writer's stream. Go ahead.
Yeah, the conversation with Doug, like, because Doug was trying to, like, he wanted to do this full time, which, like, thankfully he's doing it. Whereas just like, and he'll have people gatekeeping him with the content he creates, because some people, like, they associate you with one sort of content. You mentioned it, like the type of videos they don't like. If you put out a video, they want you to stay in your lane on kind of. Whereas like we're talking, Doug's like, hey man, to do this full time, 40K needs to be on the platform, just because there's so many people. But you risk out losing what brought you to the dance.
Your core,
if you try to go chase this. If you go try to chase these other big things, and like, you always want to show love, and it's just, we've never been like, oh, we're never going to do 40K, but we just don't play 40K. And it's like one of those, and we've tried Warcry, we've tried stuff set in this universe that is AOS, and it's like, and we play stuff, but every time I play Warcry, and it's just a personal preference, every time I play Warcry, I'm like, well, what are their stats in AOS? When I play Underworld, I'm like, okay, what are the stats in AOS? Because I'm like, okay, this is how long this songs take, but I'd rather play AOS. But that's just me personally.
No, I mean, there's something going on there. Like, I think it's not as hard for me as it is for like Rerolling Ones suddenly becomes a 40K channel, right? like hypothetically speaking, like boom, we've done it. Like we're a 40K channel now. I you're gonna lose your like a lot of your audience, right? The current audience that like loves you, and you're gonna have like your you're gonna have your like sort of faithful core group, but you're gonna lose a lot of that sort of like that second tier of fandom, right? You're gonna get new fans. People are gonna love what you do because you guys are good at what you do, but you're gonna lose. And maybe this goes back to that responsibility thing where like I do feel a little beholden to the people who like Drake started from the bottom, now we're here, like the whole crew's with me. I feel beholden to my audience, to chat gang that helped me get here. I think about the rantathon we did. Who the hell on this planet would have predicted that an AOS podcaster could do a show for mental health charity and like do good? And I didn't do it by appealing to 40K. I didn't, like we had a 40K block and we had a 40K like prize there because people, that's just off of what people donated to us. But we stayed. Y'all were on like the Rerolling Ones crew. Like we just AOS, for the most part. And like I feel beholden.
That's the birthplace of was it Muppets?
Muppets Evolved, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I remember that.
Yeah.
Was that? We come up on a year?
That was about a year, July. Yeah. We're working on the second one right now. It turns out that I did something. Huh?
I'll volunteer the Rerolling Ones crew.
Yeah, good. I expect you back. No, I mean, and that's the thing is like now it's like, well, how there was no expectation for that first one. How do we make it? Now there is expectations, which makes it way harder. But I was just a boy in a dream. But no, the point is I feel beholden to everybody that's gotten to me where I am now, and it's like one thing that I'm pretty grateful for is I think that the way I've always kind of approached my content as like, hey, you're gonna get a grab bag of conversation. You're gonna show up. Jack's gonna come on. We're gonna end up talking about wrestling and Warhammer and comedy and
not
like
Slaanesh.
Yeah, not Slaanesh at all. Like I run a show like that. Like it makes it really, really hard to like appease the algorithm and to like grow momentum with my stream and stuff like that because like I don't have that like reviews book you're interested in grab. I don't get that. But it does mean the people who are here are like, like that chat gag is like, yo, we're we're here for this. This is what we come for. And so like I don't have that same barrier that Doug does or you guys would where you're like, okay, I switched to 40K, but I still feel that what got me here is what I got to keep doing. I got to keep like I can never not do RantCast. Like if I do a second, the only like my options are do a second show, not do RantCast. I got like this is who I am.
And there are definitely like there are people who will be like, well, they'll like this is something we at Rerolling Ones we end up with like, and it's something where I feel like liberated, not caring about it. Like, well, people only watch to this far, then they jump ahead and then do this. But in my head, but like not everybody does there. There are people who watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I don't want to like, and it's like, okay, there are people who do that, but there are also people who watch the whole thing. You can't be like, well, I still want to reward the people who enjoy the whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, you're always going to have, the 30-30-30 rule, right? 30% of people always going to hate you. 30% are always going to love you. And you got that sort of transient 30%. Like, and that's where it's important to just, keep being you and keep doing what you do and, refining it, right? Learning from it, getting better at what you do. But, I got a question for you just as we're kind of all spiraling around this. I'll figure out a way. I think it's Mephisto's Masterpiece Theater. I'm going to start reading some of my own fiction and general fiction. We'll start doing something like that. I gave Rocco the idea, but since he's doing instructional videos, Rocco, I'm taking my idea back. I love you, buddy, but it's no longer Rocco's Masterpiece Theater. You can guest on it, buddy. But
yeah, I think it rolls off the Mephisto's Masterpiece Theater.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah, I'll get a little wig. I've got the fireplace. I get a log in there. Like, oh. Hello, just like start reading a book or something.
Oh, that is a Main Street joke.
Can't wait. But no. So I one of the things I struggle with is like imposter syndrome. You were talking about you watch like a TED talk or a podcast you're listening to about sort of like being the enjoying the grind, right, and being more successful that way.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm aware of, and I know many people in the community experience like the imposter syndrome. That idea that you get there and you're like, you get in the room, right? Like you get in the room and you're like, they're all gonna find out that I don't
Yeah.
belong in the room. Like, do, do
Like
you?
on stage, like, oh my gosh, this opportunity. I think I'm funny. I can make people laugh, but there's a new. This is the biggest club in the city, and now I'm like, oh man, don't mess this up. Don't mess this up. And then you're in your head like, wait, I should be here. But sometimes you get places where you shouldn't be.
Yeah.
I've been like, well, I shouldn't have been up there. Who put me up there? I was not ready for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, do you ever like? Is there ever that moment when like you or the Rerolling Ones crew, like you got that video and you're just like you're looking at maybe, you're getting told the metrics, you're trying to pay attention to it. You move on to the next thing. Do you ever have that moment where you're like, whoa, and you just like looking around like we're here? Do you when you're recording your stuff?
Oh, that happens occasionally. We're all like, my favorite thing. It really sucked with COVID. My favorite thing is when we're all together, the three of us, and we're doing a sketch, and it's like a big pot of gumbo, and we're each putting our seasoning in it. I'm like, oh, what about this? But what about this? And then those are my favorite sketches. And then we're like, we knock that one out of the park. And then when you see the initial responses, and I love that. Or when it's a great game, you get, and like they'll get like, oh wow, we're already at 10,000. I'm like, oh wow, is that the fastest? And like, and sometimes you can be competitive. You can be competitive. Like, okay, when we first started, we started with I think there were a few battle report channels that were ahead of us, and we just had internal. We never talked trash like out there. Internal. Okay, we can pass these guys.
Yeah.
We're coming up on them. Oh, people are liking our stuff. Oh, we passed these guys. And then we look up. Oh, we passed these guys. And then we like, and it's you get to the point where you're like, you want to keep growing, and then you also have to be cognitive enough and self-reflective, where you look at like, oh, our channel is sputtering because we're putting out content maybe once every 2 months, just because it is not getting together. We're not able to get together. We're not doing what we, and there's burnout, there's all this stuff, and then you're like, or one person is not as enthusiastic as somebody else. So you're like,
got
okay,
a new family or new girl in their life or something like that, right? Like
you can't get together, and you can't. One of the things, like, you can't say how serious somebody has to take this. If somebody doesn't want to meet anybody because they're staying at home, you can't be like, oh well, come on, we'll have masks. No, they're not comfortable with leaving. They're on lockdown, and so for a while, me and Shu were getting together. We still mask up, and we're just following our local guidelines. How many people the government is saying we can get together. So now we're on like phase 3. So like, all of us are excited again. All of it, we're going to get back together, and so I want to ramp back up the content, and so to reward and thank people who stayed with us, try to attract more people, and grow to 20,000, 25,000. Is how long until we're done with this, because we can be done with this.
Yeah,
we're just like, all right. That was just because I did stand up. I was now like, that's kind of in my past. I would love to get on stage again, but and there's like, I was really into MMA. That was in my past. Now I'll watch a fight occasionally, and so it might be like AOS will have its sunset, but I will never forget the friends I've made. I will still, I probably will trim down some of the armies I have. I don't need like 9 or 10. I might sell some stuff as seen on Rerolling Ones, but I'm enjoying the ride right now, and I'm getting excited because my kids, especially my oldest, he's showing interest in AOS. He likes 40K. I'm trying to beat that out of him, but and so he wants to play. He's just fleshy to courts, and it's like sharing that and connecting with it and using it as a tool to bond. I like it.
Yeah, right on. I think that's just a beautiful point to sign off on. Honestly, any last soapbox moments? Anything you want to revisit? Anything you want to put on blast or shout out?
Try to find our commonalities. Like, we all enjoy this game that is AOS. We can have different viewpoints, but like, we don't have to be nasty with each other. I try to be positive, and it's not easy. It's work. It's work to be positive. It's just And I want to just thank the community for sticking with us. Sticking with Mr. Meph, the new people who are getting online to create content. Rocco and Craig are take over Mars. Waiting for Soren. He's gonna hop on there. Ray of the Tree, hardest working man at AOS. And just producing content. It's one of those things like it's definitely sometimes we got lucky. We got because we started at the right place. The game's starting to blow up, and just like put something out there if you want to make content. The community is great. We're very supportive. We'll all let me know. I'll retweet you to my followers, and so the more content, the better. And
yeah, that's how I feel about it. I mean, it just it makes that world feel like a little bit smaller place. Like you know people, you get more connected. You're shouting out somebody on their show, or you're watching their show and listening to seeing something they did and responding to it on yours. It makes part of that makes the world feel a little bit more connected, and that's why I love gaming. I think it brings people together, like it is that like at the AOS table of life, you can come from anywhere, set up your army, and just throw dice, and I think that's what makes it beautiful.
And like you realize we're all just people. I used to be a guy listening to Warhammer Weekly, listening to MC1 Gamer, all these guys talking about AOS. Like, what is going on? Explain to me what happened in the old world. Catching up on old things, and then you're a fan, and then you can become a peer. And like I'm friends. Like I was talking with Rocco, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I was playing Soulbound with Mr. Meph and Tom and Vince," and I'm like. And he was just, I'm like, who are you bragging to, man? Like, I know I'm not a fan. you should be intimidated when you send me messages, dude.
He's just flexing. Oh man, love you, Rocco. Yeah, a lot of great content creators out there. Watch them all, consume all their stuff. Chat gang.
For sure.
I think that's it for episode 85. I am, of course, a magical Mr. Mephisto, joined tonight by Jack from Rerolling Ones, some of the best battle reps you'll ever watch, and certainly the best cold opens in the business. Check their stuff out. Checking, you're the reason we do this thing. I haven't said this one in a while. Drink your milk, pay your taxes, be excellent to each other. We're out.